2022 Bellingham Planning Board meeting. First on the agenda this evening is a continued public hearing for 152 Depot Street. Jim, can you bring us up to speed on where we are right now?
Absolutely. So 152 Depot Street, at the last meeting, the applicant had provided updated plan sheets, and the board has had robust discussions of any last final changes to the plan set. The board did then ask for the final mitigation package to be provided to this board. You are in receipt of that. That is in your package from the applicant. So we could certainly review that this evening. And you also are in receipt of a few public comments that should be in your package as well this evening.
Okay. John, can you tell us what has taken place since our last meeting?
Absolutely. Good evening. For the record, John Cusick with Fuller Engineering. We are the seventh public hearing since the project had started. And through that process, we've received comments from the board, peer reviewers, the butters, and I think we've essentially addressed really every comment that we've received. We worked into the plan set, and you can say the project that stands right now is a better project than what the project started with, which is the way the process is supposed to work. Since the last hearing, again, I think we have been through the peer review. I think the last item that was really before you was the mitigation package that has been committed to by the applicant for the board's consideration. So that was submitted in writing to go along with the package. Again, I believe it's a very, very good package. It's very, very detailed on what's in there. It's for the board's consideration. So with that, I can answer any questions you may have.
Can you talk about the package that you presented to us this evening?
The mitigation package?
Yes.
Absolutely. So the mitigation package, as submitted, has really a few items in there. There's really three main items. Number one has to do with the triangular piece of land at the frontage of the property. It's showing up on screen right now. That was something that was requested by the town that be donated as part of this project, and we have agreed to do that. The second portion of the mitigation package had to do with off-site traffic improvements. There was a lot of discussion on whether to construct a signal or provide funds to provide a signal that's more in line with the town's future plans. That is really what the town had wanted us to do. So based on that, there is a $250,000 contribution towards the construction of a new signal at Hartford and Depot Street. And then finally, there is the offer for the donation of we'll call the south parcel. It's known as 148 Depot Street.
Mm-hmm.
That was the parcel of land that was the subject of a prior application before this board, which has since been fully withdrawn. That was the parcel that we had heard is close to more of the neighborhood on Box Pond Road. There was a lot of requests to not develop that parcel. So the applicant is amenable to purchase that parcel. He does not own it, to purchase that parcel and include that in the mitigation package along with this project. The stipulation associated with that particular donation is essentially if this project moves forward as presented, is not appealed, the developer will donate that land, purchase that land and donate it. If that does not go through, it gets appealed and held up, he's going to hold on to that parcel for potential future development rights.
Before I ask any questions, Dennis, any questions?
Mr. Chairman, this is Joseph Antonellis on behalf of the applicant. Good evening. I hope you're all well tonight.
I'm
I just
calling
want
from
to point
Florida,
out,
Joe.
pardon
You
me?
in Florida?
Yes, I am, sir. But I still have a necktie on.
Okay.
So I just wanted to take a moment to point out that I prepared the mitigation letter and I phrased the terminology of the parcels of property being transferred to the property for what's called nominal consideration of less than $100. That's lawyers' talk for how to avoid documentary stamps. That's actually not necessary because the town, there are no documentary stamps that are paid when it's a transaction with the municipality. But at any rate, I just want to assure the board we're not looking for $100. So I don't think you'll need to go get town meeting approval because it's not a purchase. It will be an outright gift to the town. I just used language there that might not have been appropriate when you're making a donation to a town.
Okay.
So I just wanted to clarify that. And I'm certain that town council, if we get the board's approval for the project, that town council will be involved in making certain that the deed is properly drafted so that no other actions are necessary. I just wanted
Thank you
to
for clarifying.
Thank you.
So, just in terms of the mitigation, it's all contingent on the proposal not being appealed.
So the items number 1 and 2, those are contingent upon essentially the issuance of a building permit and moving forward with the building permit. The third item has to do with the project appeal.
Okay.
Well, the paragraph above says everything is. I just want to clarify, to that end, provided the planning board approves, blah, 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 the hours that further provides permits are not appealed, the applicant will commit to the following. And then it goes down to 1, 2, 3. So you're saying 1 and 2 is not subject to the appeal.
I can let Joe clarify on that. That was.
I think that the issue is in every one of the situations I've been involved in is that the mitigation package does not take place unless the project is moving forward. An appeal would stop it. Obviously, the successful resolution of an appeal, we'd have to come back and go over it again because that could significantly impact it economically. I'm trusting that we're never going to get there, but generally one makes a mitigation pack offer subject to approvals with no appeal.
But is it, Joe, what if there's an appeal and the appellants lose and you get to go forward with your project?
Well, I think that's an excellent question. I think we would be back in front of the board to discuss it. Frankly, if we're 4 years down the road and costs have gone staggering out of control, I don't want to put my client in a position where he's burdened by that. But again, I think the critical one there obviously is I don't think number 1 or 2 is going to come into play under any circumstances. If there was an appeal, I really do think those would go forward. The third one is the critical part because again, as John explained to you, the applicant does not own the 23-acre parcel at this time. The applicant has a divisible contract based on the 2 parcels of property and the individual permitting of both, and he is not obligated to buy the second parcel without a project on it. What he is saying, based on his representations about trying to be a good neighbor and understanding the intricacies of this particular area, that to the extent he can build his project on the north as he anticipates, then he will purchase that property and donate it to the town.
So I appreciate, I get where you're coming from, but the whether or not something is appealed is out of the town's hands, right? And if there's an appeal in the project and you're successful in defending that appeal, why would we want something less, or should we get something less than what we bargained for in this permitting process?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, to that point, I think we're in the same ballpark. We're just using different lingo, I think. So typically, I think how the board has structured these mitigation packages is by building permit and by occupancy permit. So I would foresee the first 2 items, the triangle lot and the traffic mitigation payment at time of building permit, at issuance of building permit. Donation of land of 148 Depot Street prior to occupancy permit. That's typically how we've done it in terms, or historically how we've done it in terms of donation of land as it proceeds on. There's a lot of, not really, it's unrelated to appeals, but more so in terms of just the length of time it takes to get land donated. It tends to be towards the end of a project. So prior to an occupancy, the building inspector would just confirm that this has been completed. If you're more comfortable that way, we could certainly work with the applicant, use similar language.
Yeah, I don't, and maybe I'm paranoid, which I admit I am, but wouldn't want the town to lose a significant part of the mitigation because of something that happens completely out of their control. And then the project comes back and they're not required to provide that mitigation if they're successful in defending the appeal. So I agree it should be on the issuance of an occupancy permit. If they don't build it, they shouldn't have to donate it, but
I don't mean to interrupt, but I think the stipulation that the transfer of the 23-acre parcel would be concurrent with the issue of an occupancy permit is fine with the applicant.
but it's subject to the condition of the appeal, right?
Well, yeah, because if we get appealed, and again, you know how long it takes to work something through the appeal process. You're talking multiple years. I can't have a client be realistically obligated to make a significant purchase when everything in the economy may have changed. And so to the extent that there'd be a stipulation that that in the event there is a permit up an appeal, that we'd have to come back and renegotiate the mitigation. I can understand that. I understand where you're coming from. Okay, but on the other hand, I think that we also have to look at what the applicant has to go through over a period of what could be 3 to 5 years for an appeal. I'm involved in one now that's been going on for 3.5.
But an appeal could, I know, and this is optimistic and rosy, I understand, but it could be 6 months, right? And then there is no legal cost. There's not much of a change. The fact that someone files an appeal can't be the trigger for this significant mitigation. Just can't be.
Well, I respectfully disagree, because if we're appealed, we're not getting an occupancy permit. We're not getting a building permit, and then subsequently, and I don't know where we're going to be in 2 years.
Right. So Brian, to your point, I mean, so if this was conditioned as donation at occupancy, I think that's more than sufficient for the town, right? I understand what Attorney Antonellis is saying, and that may transpire in the meantime. There may be an appeal, but nevertheless, that condition of by occupancy is still in place. I'm kind of having a hard time seeing where the disconnect is here. I would imagine the decision would reflect simply at prior to occupancy permit. If it's appealed, you don't get to occupancy, and you don't donate the land.
Not to put words in Joe's mouth, but I think what he's concerned about is there's an appeal that's litigated over 3 years. The economy changes dramatically. The prices of everything changes. He's successful. He successfully defends an appeal. Now he can build the building, but the rug has sort of been pulled out from under them. And I think that's what Joe's concern is.
I think that's aptly stated. And again, I would, if there's a median point or a point that we could agree on, it's that I would think that in the event that the project is appealed and the applicant is subsequently successful in defending the appeal, then prior to obtaining a building permit, we would have to come back to discuss the mitigation package. And I think that's the only fair way to do it. Because again, I don't think you can get the mitigation if it costs us $1 million to get to the point where we would have gotten a building permit in the first point.
I can see.
I just think I have to have some protection for my client.
I understand that, but he's looking at, that was a fixed number on that land that would stay the same 5 years later, then I don't think he would have had a problem.
Buy it.
I understand what you're saying, yeah.
Buy it today.
I can see why the town could
Sell it
really
and win.
be
Can I just
affected by
interject for a
this.
moment, please?
I always look at those.
Jim, I thought this topic came up during the Amazon negotiations. And correct me if I'm wrong, is in the process of an appeal, the applicant is not obligated to go back to the mitigation package. And secondly, as part of that mitigation package, any of the items, let's say they reduce the size of the building, technically can go back to the first point of discussion. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, so I believe you're referring to remanding back to the board. So it's ultimately up to the determination of a judge in terms of an appeal, what is remanded back to the board, whether it's the project as a whole or certain aspects of it. So it would be very specific to that project.
Okay, but okay, and it's specific to each project. Okay,
So going after the attorneys isn't always a good thing, but in my mind, this 148 parcel is a key portion of the mitigation. You know, as far as, you know, not having that, you know, when you guys came in, there were 2 warehouses, you know, the traffic studies and things like that were all viewed with just one location there. And when you read the language that's in the letter right now, it's pretty cut and dry. And I'm not a lawyer after you guys, but it basically says if there's any appeal whatsoever, then that piece is out. So to me, that's an important part of this mitigation that will be weighed very carefully when the time comes, unless we can come up with some sort of agreement about that, you know, different language. I'm okay if the language says something that you don't get the final occupancy or something like that. But if the language that's there is, if anybody appeals, to me, that's a very, very, very detrimental to this package right now. I'll just say it that way. So.
That's fair.
Jim, I had a question for you. Who can file an appeal against this project? Anyone in town, or does it need to be in a butter?
It would depend. It's someone with standing, so it could be in a butter. Someone impacted by the project. It would depend. The applicant can also appeal their decision.
Okay, thank you.
do you have any idea on the value of this land?
I've heard, I can't substantiate that, but it was, I want to say it was kicking $1 million. It was pretty substantial.
Okay, so let's say conservatively, $750,000. And if you build this building without donating the land, it is conceivable down the road, someone else could purchase that land and find a way to build on it.
Yeah, and I think the intent of the way that language was written, and I can let, again, Joe speak to that, is by way of mitigation. I think early on was talked about traffic, and the clear mitigation was you create traffic, we're going to mitigate the signal that's part of the traffic. And then as through the process, we talked about noise, and we've added sound walls, and we essentially impact all of our.
I appreciate everything you've done.
Yep, and I think that's part of that. And then the last thing that we had heard was, hey, well, it would be great if, if you donate the front piece, which we already agreed to. And it's like, hey, it would be really great if you could purchase that or donate the other piece, which we don't own the other piece. We have to buy the other piece at a substantial amount of money.
Mhm.
In order to do that, if the project, and again, that's not, if that piece really is kind of a nice to, it's not abutting our property, it's away from the property, it really doesn't associate with the property that we're developing that's before you, because we dropped that. And I think the piece is great. If we're trying to play nice and do everything that everybody's asked from the board and from the abutters and all of that, if the project then moves forward and the abutters choose to appeal it because they just don't like the project, which happens,
Yep.
then there's no value to provide that land because it's not a mitigation to the project. The benefit is to avoid an appeal if they choose to
Okay.
appeal. I think that's really the intent of it, and it's a pretty substantial purchase to do that.
Okay.
So if it's appealed, you at least want to retain the rights to develop it.
I'd like to step back even further. I'm sure I've been quoted in town quite a bit on various public avenues. At one point, I said the mistake of initially your hours was going to cost you. This is what I would like to get from the town, is this parcel of property. I think this mitigation is rather substantial. I may want to tweak it in a minute. Joe, what do you find as compromise language?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. We're not making this presentation to be antagonistic or to hold a hammer over the board.
I understand that, sir.
In any shape, manner, or form, and I think John summarized it very nicely. I feel as though if there's an appeal, then if you approve this with the mitigation package as presented, we can't, in my opinion, we can't build it unless we conform to the decision. What I think we need to all recognize is that if there is an appeal and extended delay, and this remains a condition, and we were to win, then we would either come back and negotiate a modified mitigation package, or go forward, or abandon the project altogether. What I don't like saying that, because I don't like to offer a reason for someone to appeal, but I also recognize that the board may be constrained in granting a permit that prohibits someone from doing something else. So I can leave it to your discretion on the language, but I think what we're trying to let you as a board know is that we believe that the donation of this property is a part of the mitigation package that's actually not related specifically to the development. I recognize, as you've stated, that part of what makes it, and I think Phil said it earlier, part of what makes it important is it stops the potential for further development on that street. So again, I think we can move forward, but I just think the board needs to understand that the significant expense in purchasing that property may not be available if we're set backwards by an appeal. The economy changes, building prices go up, and again, with what's going on, COVID, and now with the situation in Ukraine with raw materials and demands, I think we just need to all know that if we're delayed, we're probably going to come back and talk about a different mitigation package. So if I'm confusing you by that answer, I guess what I'm just trying to say
you're
is
not.
you're going to make a decision, and we're going to have to live with it.
I understand. And, we feel that way with all our decisions.
Yeah.
Some of our decisions are unpopular more than others. But, we work, as you've heard on many nights, we work within an envelope or a box when it comes to property that's properly zoned. I do not want to see this parcel developed. I think the neighbors know that we have listened to them over the past several months. I'm also going to ask, I know this may seem presumptuous, Depot Street has a litter problem right now. I know we've seen some pictures of it. Some of it, obviously, it's long existed before you bought the property. It is an area that is somewhat, at night, probably dark. I would like to envision overall for the town, something called like the Bellingham Street Improvement Program, or specifically for Depot Street Enhancement Initiative, where we're going to reach out to people, new people on Depot Street. Hopefully there won't be a lot more. Ask them to make donations in kind to try to keep these streets clean. And I know we're talking about $1 million potentially for the property, $250,000 for the lights. Joe, would you be willing for this Bellingham Street Enhancement Initiative to donate in the neighborhood of $7,500?
Mr. Chair, I think that that's certainly something that my client would like to do. He's made the representation that he wanted to be a good neighbor. He recognizes that there's been other problems along the street, and to the extent that we're going to start an adopt a street program like we see with the highway signs.
Correct.
And we're going to start it on Depot Street as a proactive manner for development in Bellingham. I believe we could come on board with that.
And what we probably do is have a mechanism. I think the assistant town planner can work with the town manager and develop a mechanism to, if we move forward, to collect this revenue and either deal with a nonprofit or during the summer, hire some kids to try to keep these avenues clean. And we'd be looking down the road for, Mechanic Street, Maple Street, just to, try to keep our town better. And this is based on a lot of the feedback that we've heard from the neighbors and also neighbors in town. So I appreciate you on that. So I think the final thing comes down to, I think we're very close in the package. Jim, what do you think the language can be that's amenable to the town and to the applicant?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman, yeah, I'm happy to draft up some language when the appropriate time comes, and can certainly offer it to the board for your consideration. I understand what the needs of the board and opportunity to protect the town. So I could certainly offer you some language at the appropriate time.
And, besides the land that we may get, I want the neighbors to know that, we've listened to you. And, this Depot Street, this applicant's not causing the problem. I think we all know who it is, and down the road, we may try to reach out to them. But, tonight, this board is starting an initiative that hopefully will be in industrial areas, maybe town-wide, that we ask our partners to help, keep Bellingham clean. And again, I appreciate you being the first person to step up and do that. So unless anyone on the board has any more questions,
Can I just have one clarification?
of course.
Thank you. So Joe, not to beat a dead horse. So are you saying then that condition of an appeal, you're not going to insist on that, or just trying to understand what your response was?
Well, again, I think that more than anything, it's important that my client that people understand that while we are developing a piece of property, there are significant costs. There are speculative costs. I understand that's his business of choice. And I recognize again that you have a mixed area of zoning in your community, as most communities do. I recognize that it's a difficult balance. And as you know, I've been before your board on multiple projects over multiple years, and I'm not saying this for any reason other than that it's a fact. but the Bellingham Planning Board that I'm in front of tonight is one of the most thorough boards I've ever practiced before relative to its insistence that a developer pay attention to the neighborhood. But I don't think that you as a municipality can necessarily condition something that prohibits, that is seen to prohibit the exercise of someone's free rights. What I think I'm trying to let the board know is that if it goes in the wrong direction, we may not be able to do what your board and what my applicant both think is appropriate in this particular set of circumstances.
I'd like to go on the record that say I'm looking for a compromise on number 3. I'll just go on the record. I'm looking for a compromise language on that.
I think Jim is gonna try to propose something.
If I'm,
I'm not,
it's
I'm addressing the applicant here, is I'm looking
Oh,
for,
sorry.
I'm looking for some alternative language compromise here. And that'll be my statement. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, would this term be time sensitive with the applicant? You know, I'm saying for the, like the.
Well, I don't think we can wait, 3 months for the language. I mean,
No, I mean, you write it in the decision, you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Because or else you're gonna have to write, what are you gonna write, 2 decisions?
no, I think what we could envision is have Jim deal with the applicant and his attorney and find some agreeable language in regards to number 3, the donation of the land, and present it to us at a future meeting in a decision. I think we have, from my viewpoint, we have vetted this project extensively. It has been downsized. We have listened to neighbors. We've listened to townspeople. We're dealing with an area that is, a lot of neighbors may not like it, properly zoned. And we're working within parameters that we do not have. I don't want to use the word wiggle room, but you called it, a box or an envelope that we have to work within in regards to placing business in industrial zones. I'm not saying our hands are tied for to a degree, they are.
Right.
So unless I have any other questions, you want the last question again?
That's fine.
I have some things, Bill, but I don't know if we want to get into it now, but I do think it's important that maybe the applicant comes back and really take a look at their O&M plan and
Sure.
look at least that first bullet, which says the property owner shall be responsible for, in quotes, the good housekeeping, including proper periodic maintenance of building and pavement areas, curbing, landscaping, then etc. I would like to see if that can be expanded a little bit more to include, cleaning around the perimeter of the site, or, really see what they're going to come up with and enhancing that.
I
if we
think
could.
that will apply not only in this instance, but I think this will be a template for OEMs moving forward, correct? And
I just
we'll
think it
deal with
needs
the
to be good
specifics
housekeeping isn't
as they each
enough
come in.
with what's going on just for the residents. So I think,
So I think
I don't
that's a
know what
good
the
start.
board views on that, or if you even want to consider anything like that, but I know that there've been a lot of concerns about the trash, so.
I
Now's the
think,
time
well,
to do it.
again, we started that initiative tonight. I think we're starting this. I don't have a problem
Okay.
with changing the OEM language. I think we can work with Jim, and this will be tailored to future developers. And you'll fine tune what has to be done.
Question regarding that, when you're, for the long-term pollution prevention plan, that's just for stormwater, correct?
We can, I talked with Ann and we can add more in regards to what's around the area.
Okay. I know usually the long-term O&M is just, or this is, all right, pollution prevention, usually it's in the O&M plan for stormwater, so.
I'm fine with it. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea also.
Thank you. I'd like to open up to the public. I'm turning to my left because I'm sorry, you're all there.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm sure. Does anybody else want to speak? I mean,
Okay.
I have plenty to say, but I'm gonna
Oh,
let
yeah.
you guys first. I mean, he's a business owner on the road. He lives right next to him, so.
So Jeff Muldoon, 230 Depot. I appreciate you guys and ladies and your diligence. I appreciate the idea to have the road clean. I'm sure you've seen my pictures and videos. It's disgusting.
I understand.
And I'm appreciating that. Last meeting, and I'm gonna read from my notes, excuse me on this one. Mr. O'Connell, you specifically asked the developer to reach out to the neighbors that they had reached out to in the past and reach out to them again, and that you would say.
I think I said something like, before you quote me, I can tell you.
I
what
can
might
quote
have
you.
said. No, it's all right. I said it's a process that should not be discussed in a public venue.
Mhm.
And it's similar to when I was growing up. My mother said, Billy, you like meatloaf, but you don't want to see how the meatloaf is made.
Correct.
So I'm wondering,
But what you did say is that you had said that you wanted to know that there had been progress.
if they've reached out to you.
They have not.
Okay.
So I understand about the meatloaf analogy, like 100% on board. I get that.
It's something we can't delve into.
I get that. But you had said that you wanted to know that they had reached out and that there had been some kind of discussions.
Mhm.
There was discussions as previously mentioned in like October, November time period that we talked about, and somebody said it was a bribe and it wasn't and all that stuff. Nobody reached out to me. And as far as I can tell, nobody reached out to any other neighbors either. So when you make your decision, please take that into consideration.
Let's give the applicant an opportunity to address that.
No, we reached out earlier, and it really was kind of phrased as a bribe, even though after you said it wasn't, but it was not a bribe.
I said it was not.
No, in the beginning you did.
No, I said it was not a bribe. I never said it was a bribe, and I actually defended you and said that it was not.
The last hearing, but in any event.
I never said anything about it being a
In
bribe.
any, please let me finish. In any event, the applicant, when everything is said and done, he'll meet with you again when everything's up and if the project moves forward, it's built, to talk about, hey, is there a view issue here? Do you have a concern here? He'll meet with you again and he'll be a good neighbor. He has been a good neighbor.
I appreciate that, but that wasn't what was the request, right? The request was to say something, to talk to us now. I get it, and I don't appreciate you saying that I said it was a bribe. Maybe somebody else did, maybe there's some insinuation somewhere, but me, never. I've been fair to you, I was fair to you guys on the phone, I've been cool with you guys, fair to the board. I don't appreciate being accused of saying something that I didn't say. I did not say it was a bribe. Not once. I didn't insinuate that it wasn't. It really, really bothers me that you said that it was a bribe. So I appreciate what you guys are doing. Please, when you make your final decision, make sure that if you make a decision to approve it, make that 148 ironclad. If property values are going up like they are, buy it and then sell it.
No.
I'm just
No, sir. The
but
whole
what I'm getting at,
object,
you know what I mean, though. Like,
I'm buying it is to give it to the town, so it can't be developed.
you understand what I'm saying, though, right?
Correct.
I mean, okay. As long as we understand that they're basically putting a gun to my head saying I can't appeal it or else. That's what that feels like to me. That, we're gonna have to renegotiate that. That feels like somebody's pointing a gun to my head and say I can't appeal it.
Conversely, you could look at it the other way around.
Sure. I'm just,
They're just playing devil's advocate.
of course.
Yes, sir. I know you have a long list.
Yeah, okay. William Weaver, Fox Pond Road. I have a couple things. James, sorry, question. You said anybody affected by this could appeal it, correct?
Well, it truly does depend. There is specific standing. I'm not a lawyer. You would have to speak with an attorney on that one.
Okay, well, my next question is, we have all these lawyers, everybody's here is pretty smart. Why can't they just write it straightforward? So everybody can understand it. Why do they keep trying to do these loopholes? So there's all these misunderstandings. you guys can straight up, Joseph
Joe,
could easily put that into writing right now, that without the land, so the town is only gonna do this if they get that land, correct?
I did not say that.
Right, because of the fact that somebody like me and all these people that it affects is and will go against it. So,
I know the town would like to have one.
right, now, being the fact that that road is trash and it has been since I started here,
Mhm.
okay? All these companies should already be responsible for what's in front of their buildings as it is. And whatever, they should already be paying for a responsible amount to clean that road. It doesn't take much, but you guys saw how much has piled up in the last couple months, right? It's only because a couple of us stopped picking it up.
Yep.
Only a couple of us stopped picking it up, and look what happens.
Okay,
Okay, so that does a little of the trash. If we, sure, we get all the buildings that are there to start doing all the trash, okay? That has nothing to do with our traffic. That light we're gonna get from them supposedly put in there is not gonna solve any issue with the trucks side by side on that road, because nobody can still get in there. Now, I see officers there, here and there, but most of the time they're there at 2 o'clock, you know,
in the afternoon.
in the afternoon.
Okay.
They're not there until we call them, when the trucks are side by side, and we literally have to shoot that narrow spot to get between the two trucks to see, and hopefully nobody's gonna pull out of that. Now, that has nothing to do with them,
I understand.
but we already are dealing with that.
Mhm.
That's not gonna get any better with this huge company coming there.
I understand.
So I know it's zoned for industrial, you know, there's so much little space left for industrial at this town. If you zoom that map out, you see how much little is left, how much is left to here. So just because it's left and we can cram these places in here, it doesn't mean the town needs it. Why do we need more of this on something that is already what they graded as an F in traffic? Why are we jamming more in here? Just
Jim, could you
so-
address that before the applicant does?
I'm sorry, the by right zoning?
Yes.
Well, I mean, I think the board has addressed that pretty substantially over the last 6 months. I mean, this is an industrially zoned area. And they provided the traffic impact analysis. You are correct, there was failures. The town is certainly looking at Hartford Avenue as a corridor as a whole and recognize the concerns there. With that being said, I mean, this is a development plan that's before the board in a zone that is in the accurate zone. I know I've spoken with a number of folks about ways in which in the future we could look at analyzing the town zoning and perhaps looking at different locations to rezone. I know the board has done that over time, but nevertheless, that doesn't help us here.
it doesn't help
Yeah,
us
we
in
have
this
tried. We tried
situation.
to rezone Maple Street and was voted down.
No, I know you did, but we live right here. We have to deal with what we have already. And you're trying to just stack on, they can't even tell us the number of trucks they're gonna have there a day. They can't even tell us how many hours they're gonna operate. They know exactly how many hours they're gonna operate. I don't understand why we have to cram this in, just so we can, I appreciate trying to save that little space because it's right next to the water. It's right next to even more houses, 148. But for how many laws would they have to try to change to be able to even get the driveway into 148 to begin with? To fit their trucks and stuff in there.
I don't think they would. I think someone else probably would. That'll be a valuable piece of land.
Right, but it doesn't have to be a trucking company that nobody knows what's going in there and nobody knows how long these trucks are gonna be backing up for. And it affects all of the
Sir,
people here
Okay, I'm,
that live here.
no. I just want to address one thing you said. We've been very careful through this process. We've heard what you're saying. We've listened to the faults, what happened before. We can't correct the sins that have happened at Best Buy and at Dunkin' Donuts.
No, we can't,
No, but
but we can stop it
we'd
right
love to.
now.
We'd love
We
to.
can stop it right
And-
now before it gets any worse. How do you get worse than an F?
I don't know, sir.
An F plus, bring, that's what we're gonna get.
Their vehicles are gonna be kept all times on your property. Will not be queuing any vehicles,
That is correct.
okay? And as we move down the road, we have an applicant across on the other side. He is not allowed to queue vehicles in the street. We've learned from our mistakes. Unfortunately, it is, as Joe alluded to, I don't think he used the word, it's a hodgepodge of zoning. And we have to work within those constraints. I just, we've tried to do the best we can.
Right, and nothing's been fixed with the traffic and safety of the people in this neighborhood. Nothing.
Okay,
Well, I mean, how long has it been right now since we've been having these meetings and talking about the trash or whatever? We're just now gonna get this town clean? This strip that's been gross for how long? We're just now doing this.
and what would you like us to have done beforehand?
Who's responsible for the trash on the road? Is it DPW?
I don't know, sir.
James? I'm sorry to keep going to you, but apparently you're the man to talk
No,
to about
excuse me.
who knows. So is it the DPW that's responsible for the streets and the trash and what's on there?
Yes, DPW is responsible for the public ways, obviously not this board.
Correct. So I've seen street sweepers go down the street, God knows how many times, but you know what? Those brushes only hit the edge of the road. They don't get any of the trash on the side of
I
it.
know.
I haven't seen anybody picking up trash with the yellow bags on the side. It doesn't take, how many people does it take to clean up that road? 10 people?
10 people.
Yeah, 10 people could have picked up that from the DPW since the beginning of this meeting. Nobody's gone down there. And you're telling me that with them putting their thing in and they're gonna pay for the trash and everybody's gonna start doing it now, it'll be clean, which we all appreciate. Let's just start somewhere and get it clean. It has nothing to do with our safety of the trucks. We need that road wider. If we're sending all these Mack trucks down this, we need to widen that road. It's the only way that we're all gonna get by. So, and I mean, I think that's fair, right?
No.
And how are you gonna do that?
No, you don't widen the road. Every time a truck sits there and parks for Best Buy, I'm sorry. I work there every day. I've been there for 50 years. I'm sorry. The warehouse is gonna go through no matter how you look at it. The thing is you have to put regulations on them now. I talked to you a couple of weeks ago on the phone and Zoom about the one going up by Rapid Refill,
That's right.
about snow removal.
Mhm.
Have you ever been there driving behind an 18-wheeler coming out of Best Buy with snow coming off the top? I'll tell you right now, when one of my employees or my family members gets hurt or killed from the stuff that comes off those trucks, I'm not gonna go after Best Buy. I'm gonna go after the landowner. I'm gonna sue them for the stuff coming off the trucks, but they're not the only ones. I think Dunkin' Donuts is the only one that brushes off the trucks. The little bus company in there, they're the same ones. When that last snowstorm came through, they all booked down 50, 60 miles an hour down Depot Street to get the snow off the truck because they're too damn lazy to brush it off.
I'm sure I agree with you.
Every single warehouse that you're putting in town needs a snow removal system built by the owner of the property. They're responsible for what they're renting to, not the people who are renting because they don't care.
I
You can see
understand.
this by Best Buy's people, they don't care. Right?
What we discussed, I've discussed with the assistant planner moving forward, are a couple of things. That as we move down the road, all vehicles have to be kept on the property. Number two, they have to adhere to anti-idling. They also have to adhere to the state law, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, where they said you have to remove snow and ice from your vehicles.
But they don't.
I understand, but moving forward, that will be part of every new project, and we'll ask other projects
But this
as
is.
as they need, as they come up, to try to.
It's not built, so.
I
They're
understand.
gonna build it, which, I'm sorry, I'm a business owner, and I feel bad for the residents. We all have to deal with these people that are gonna come in no matter what. We're gonna have to deal with the trucks. The only thing in town of Bellingham you can do is drop the speed limit through the whole entire town to 30 miles an hour or less, because Depot Street's 30 miles an hour on either, and then dumps up to what, 40, 45? Right?
Yep.
And trust me, they're doing 45, 50 on either end, and they don't really care. It is what it is. You can do what I do. I pull out in front of them. Yeah, I drop it down to 20. I really don't care. Hit me. You got insurance.
Yep.
It's all good. The second question I have for you. In Iowa, they
Is
had a
it for
warehouse.
me or for the,
Well, for the applicant, actually, and for the board. In Iowa, about a month ago, an Amazon facility caught on fire.
okay,
30 towns got called to that and they couldn't put it out. Because they don't know what's inside the buildings. Now you're gonna have an applicant come in here, you don't know what's inside the building, and you're gonna catch on fire. Not even a week ago, there was a fire in the center of Bellingham. They called it a warehouse fire. So they called 5 towns in to go put it out. It's just a chimney fire with the old poplar precast, the chimney fire. 5 towns had to get called in. Now that building is what, 30,000, 40,000 square feet?
mhm,
What's gonna happen with 200,000 square feet when nobody in town knows what's in it and it catches fire? I'm just asking, because if 200,000 square feet of whatever's in there catches on fire, how many neighborhoods have to get evacuated from the hazardous smoke coming out of these buildings? I'm not saying it's gonna catch on fire. God forbid, I hope not, because somebody could get hurt. Firemen could get hurt, employees can get hurt. It's a devastating thing to watch. But the question is, they're just the owners. They're gonna rent to whoever they want.
correct.
That's a problem. When the town doesn't know what's gonna be put in there, and they still don't.
I believe, I don't want to interrupt you. We asked for risk management, they changed the terminology from material safety data sheets to safety data sheets on site and also computerized. I think, at least when I was in the business, we requested the local fire department do quarterly walkthroughs to find out what's in those facilities. They have their proper data sheets. They make sure for public safety, especially during the winter months, that exits are accessible and open and not blocked from the inside or the outside. And they do periodic walkthroughs. So I think as those tenants come forward and they come to us, we can address that in the OEM project. But I believe the fire department does periodically walk through some of the, okay.
Inspect mine every year, once a year.
So, yeah, they were supposed to inspect out of the 5 industrial buildings right there next to me. None of us have been inspected. I had to fill out all the forms for the fire department. We all sent them in. We had to number our doors, tell them what's in our building. We'll be back. We have an appointment for you on Thursday. Never showed up on Thursday. Call them a week later. No, we're busy. We'll get that. It's been 5 years.
Okay,
So they're more than welcome to come in. I don't mind.
so I'm
Right? So
I'm not the fire
The
chief,
fire department, they're
Okay.
great people.
but it's in
But
our
anyways,
minutes.
on the trash issue, I've been there for, October will be 50 years. There used to be about 4 or 5 people that used to walk down with little sticks and trash bags. Dale next door to us, Dale Engineering, me. If one of our dumpsters was open, they would throw all the trash in their dumpsters. We don't really care. But he is correct, because I just picked up, I don't know how many pamphlets from Best Buy's delivery stuff all over my parking lot. This today. I actually have one of them left in my truck because I must have missed it under a foot. But it's like, I understand, because his building's gonna be set back.
Mhm.
It's not directly on the road. So, yeah, I mean, $750, is that gonna kill somebody to pay somebody to pick it up? No, DPW now is gonna be on the road. So all these guys that aren't doing anything half the time, well, they can go down there and pick up trash, but they won't. They're not gonna pick it up. It's gonna be down to the business owners walking in or the residents walking in.
Okay, what I envision, and I apologize, I did not want to speak this much about this tonight,
No, you don't have to.
because we're still in the formulation stage. I like to see funds set aside as we move forward to keep these streets clean. And have either the Park and Rec Department or the DPW or nonprofit organizations receive some of this money and do the cleanup. You know, it's sort of like a public-private partnership. And we're gonna, as we move forward, be looking to that.
Bellingham moms, they're all over Facebook. Hit them up, tell them to clean it.
Okay, well, tonight we started, okay? We're starting to put a plan together to keep it clean. I know it may not be popular with some people, but tonight's a start. And it shows that, you know, we are listening to the residents.
Yeah, so I mean, your praise on Amazon and stuff, they're not the nice neighbors you think, especially out of Belfast.
I'm not saying they are.
No, because they're trucks, so you need to re-evaluate 126 by Home Depot. Because I don't know how many times I've been in the right-hand lane, because I come off the highway and I gotta go all the way down to Depot Street, come back to work instead of going to the center. How many times Amazon trucks in the left-hand lane decide to try to squeeze me over to the right? Well, there is no more right. It's a hill, somebody's front yard, couple telephone poles and signs. They don't care, they just push you out of the way.
All
I have
right,
a
Jim, can you,
feeling-
hold up one second. Can we approach Amazon?
But that's Milford, so.
Oh, it's Milford, I'm sorry.
Because they're coming off 185 at 18, because they can't go through the center of Milford, so they use Bellingham.
Okay.
So you're
I'm sorry.
adding,
Excuse me, sir, just point of order. We are way off topic. We are way off topic.
no, yeah, go back to your.
Okay.
other-
Please,
Yeah.
please,
The,
way off topic. We can't,
I understand, I'm sorry, I couldn't make a lot of meetings because I work so many hours, I apologize. It's just a few things I wanted to say about the snow removal and the fire, because after watching it the other day, I figured I'd take some hours out of work tonight and come over and say hello again. So I apologize for interrupting and going off course.
Okay,
and I would say that there's an Earth Day cleanup next weekend.
Use my dumpster if you have to, throw it in there.
No, I will, if everyone is as concerned as they are with the upkeep of the town, and I'm sure you do. How many of you are gonna be there? Right?
street, look at my street.
Well, there's a whole town with litter all over it, right? And it has nothing to do with the planning board or this project, right? It's,
Your
I hear
project
you and I
goes down
agree
to
with you. I hear what,
The
I
trucks
hear,
and the land.
I hear and agree with all of you. But please go to the proper forums. You know what I mean? We're talking about this development. We are the planning, board. We're not the selectmen. You know what I mean? This isn't town meeting. Do something and focus your attention on solving these problems rather than complaining about them. There's an Earth Day next weekend. Please show up. I will be there. My children will be there. I invite your families to come and help out and to solve these problems. But sitting here and griping about things that this board has no authority over, federal and state regulations concerning the storage of materials and fire regulations.
No, I wanted to bring it to your attention because you're asking for
Sir, I
warehouse.
respectfully listened to you this for many, many months, complaining about things that I wish I could help you with. But understand that this is not the forum to solve these problems. This is not. We're talking about the impacts of this project that is in an industrial zone area. I'm sorry you live next to an industrial zone area. They have property rights. We don't have a magic wand to solve these problems, and nor do we have the authority or the ability to do it. Please, please,
That's fine.
understand,
I apologize for talking about
understand.
the trash, and I apologize that I didn't want to bring up the snow thing.
I
The
understand.
trucks, for
Thank
safety
you.
reasons, that's the only concern I wanted, it was the safety reasons. Now, on your
Sir,
land
sir, I
situation
thank you, sir.
on it,
We
that's
spent
your
a-
choice. If the town wants to be bargained by a piece of land, give it to it if they want to make their vote. If somebody's gonna appeal it, I'll guarantee it, it ain't gonna be me or whatever, but it's gonna be somebody's gonna appeal it. You're gonna lose that 23 acres.
Mr. Chairman, we got a couple extra hands up online here.
yeah.
Um,
Jim,
Mr. Hawley, I should know your name by now. I'm so sorry.
Steve, but you can call me Holly. I just wanted to reiterate that our concerns about the whole project, from my perspective and many others, they still remain. They haven't changed. The traffic, the community character, our home values, all of that, from my perspective, I haven't heard anything that's going to change that significantly, especially on the traffic side of it. And I won't go through it again, but no one said anything to me that made me say, you know what, this traffic mitigation, is really going to work. I don't believe it's going to. I understand that there's a hodgepodge, as it's called, of zoning. We got an industrial zoning backed up against agricultural zoning, which is crazy to me. My perspective, though, is just, if you're going to have industrial bordering agricultural, at least have something on that industrial piece of land that doesn't negatively impact us as much as this would. So, from my perspective, I'm not saying don't put an industrial building on an industrial zone piece of land. I know you don't have any control over zoning, but to me, there is some control over what type of industrial building can go there and how it would impact or not impact us as much as something like this would. And just to Billy's point and others that have brought this up, we still don't know what's going into that building. We don't know the traffic impact. You can do all your whiteboard studies that you want. You can post whatever numbers you want. But at the end of the day, until you know who's going in there, what the operating hours are, the type of product they're bringing in, we don't know the impact of the traffic impact. And we're still in this whole damn supply chain issue. So, what's going to happen if and when that clears up? So it's just, nothing's changed from my perspective. It's still going to be a problem. People had mentioned that Best Buy and Dunkin', those size buildings on Depot Street was a mistake. If those two are a mistake, then this one's a mistake. There's just no way you can convince me otherwise. So that's all I wanted to bring up, that I haven't heard anything that was some epiphany to me that would make me think that this is, not a bad thing.
Jim, the next person?
We do have Darcy.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, so I just want to quickly address the member of the board who mentioned Earth Day and the cleanup on Depot Street. I have been out there personally myself, my time off, I work full time, cleaning up Depot Street. So members of the community are actually doing that. Just wanted to get that off my chest. My second thing is the board considering the determination of 152 Depot Street, considering the other warehouses in Mendon and Hopedale, that the trucks will have to come down Hartford to get to?
We have. We're aware of it.
Okay. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Diane Chiquette, 46 Box Pond Road.
Thank you for showing up.
Yeah, our family's been on Box Pond for over 50 years. I know you guys have a really tough decision to make. God bless you. But in 50 years, our roads have never been done. A house at the other end of the street, house burnt down. They have sent in probably 5 or 6 neighboring fire trucks, couldn't put it out because there's no fire hydrant down Box Pond Drive. So now you're gonna, so basically I did a little research, and your master plan from 2020, land use, continue to seek opportunities to align new growth with infrastructure so not to overburden our roads or drinking water. It's top priority, high, timeframe 1 to 3 years. If you're already 2 years in, and you're looking to put a distribution center in. I just don't see it where our roads are deteriorating left and right. People's houses are burning down because they don't have a fire hydrant. There is no fire hydrant down the Box Pond Drive. So how can we look at putting a distribution center if there's a fire and it spreads? Their homes are going up in flames. There's no way of putting it out. Our water is, our level of our water is so bad. That's going to put such a strain. Their fire system is going to put a strain on our water. So can you just really take a look at that? I think it's just beyond, I know everybody else has concerns, but we really need to look at people's homes and water and the deterioration of our current road without even considering putting another distribution center in. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, may I real quick address that one comment? I'm just really excited someone read my our 2020 master plan, that's all. Thank you for that. And I will say, for the board, they have taken that actually section of that plan and have started to try and address that. And as I'm sure you've heard the board mention over the last few months, they have been turned away at town meeting, unfortunately, when trying to rezone. But they're certainly, taking that to heart and looking at ways in the future we can address that. Absolutely.
I'm gonna speak as a Bellingham resident, not as a board member. So I don't get accused of go over the boundaries. I'm very concerned about our aquifer in town. And something I plan to address continually as long as I'm a resident in Bellingham. I think if something happens to that, this town's in trouble. And it's a precious resource and we need to protect it. And we did that starting a year ago. And it's something we are very concerned about. Again, I'm concerned, I shouldn't say we. I'm very concerned about the quality of our aquifer. And that's something I will work on as long as I live here. Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, thank you. I've been to the last 5 or 6 of these meetings on this project. And this project is a lot of things, but good isn't one of them. Okay? Whatever they're gonna do, that's gonna affect traffic, air pollution, garbage, whatever it is, the urine being thrown on that lady's lot. I mean, how many of you people are willing to go down to one of their lots and clean up the urine? This project here is negative. Anything else on Depot Street is negative. We're so overburdened in this town with overdevelopment. There's no balance. There's absolutely no balance. And I've heard there's 3 or 4 more warehouses on the docket. What are we going to be, a truck stop? Is that what you want? Is that what your legacy is going to be? You made us a truck stop. God, stop it.
Ken, respectfully, the zoning was passed in the late 60s.
That zoning was changed in 1997.
1997. It's 25 years, if I did the math.
What's your point?
We, the board, are dealing with what we have.
Then
So
get the
please
zoning
don't-
board,
Ken,
get the
my
zoning
point-
board involved and get that changed. That was changed.
Can we
That
just-
was changed.
One person at a time.
Mr. Chairman, that zoning was changed and the land court judge that had to deal with the 3rd power plant ruled them illegally. They were illegally involved with contract zoning. And that zoning was changed because Florida Power and Light came in here and conned the Board of Selectmen and the school committee and everybody else in town, says, we're gonna give you $8 million when you build your new school to get that zoning changed. And it got changed. That's why these people are in trouble. That was all residential and it was all farmland zoning. Now it's been that way because of that situation and they lost. The 3rd power plant was never built here because they were illegally bribing the town, Florida Power and Light. That's the issue. Get that land rezoned and get it back to the people. These people are getting brutalized.
We've tried to
Do
do
you
that.
understand that?
Excuse me. Were you at the
They're
last,
getting brutalized.
were you at the last town meeting?
Yes, I go to every town meeting.
We tried to rezone Maple Street.
I know all about it.
All right, and look what happened.
It should have been rezoned.
That's the opinion this
Let's
board.
go to another town meeting and get this damn land rezoned. Let's get the zoning board in here.
Well, the problem with the zoning on that was not, it was the way it was done.
It was what?
The way it was done, all they needed was a parcel of 10 feet down the whole entire thing, Franklin, to zone it, so they couldn't build through it. They didn't need the whole entire parcel because it would.
Well, that's another
That's
thing.
another issue. I'm talking about these poor people.
I do
on
have an
Depot
issue.
Street.
So why?
Who's gonna
why
pick up the
do we
urine?
have
Just
that-
one person at a time.
Sorry. So none of us should be responsible for picking up everybody else, the truckers' feces, okay? These trucks, I'm telling you, they're gonna be there tomorrow, lined up on the road. Now, we've been talking about fining these and how strict the fines are gonna be for just one of these companies, correct? You said it was in 6
I think so. I've
Okay.
spent 5 years since I
Right.
dealt with the
So
fire.
just one of those fines would be enough to clean that whole street, okay? Know how many trucks are gonna be lying down that road tomorrow morning? They're gonna be on both sides, okay? Why don't we have the safety officer go down there tomorrow and ticket $100,000?
They can't go to that amount.
Oh, right,
But they
okay,
can-
so they can find each
They're-
one of those truckers. There's gonna be at least 9 there tomorrow morning, okay? Let's start tomorrow. Call the safety officer in here. And no more giving these same trucks that are here warnings anymore. They're gonna be there tomorrow. So why can they keep doing this? So if I go park my car there tomorrow, my truck that they're not gonna be able to move, right in front of that Best Buy, and I idle my truck and just sit there and, oops, my truck broke down right in front of their line of trucks. Who are they gonna call?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
They're gonna, hold on, I'm talking.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, it's time to move on.
It's not, it's really not, because this is our lives, Jim. This is our neighborhood. How
Sir,
close do you guys live to the neighborhood?
I understand, sir.
You don't even
but-
live in this town, Jim. It's not close to your neighborhood, I'm sorry.
That's right.
You don't even see this, because what town are you in right now?
That's irrelevant.
We don't need to know your
That's
town.
irrelevant.
Okay, sure.
And where we all live is irrelevant.
Okay, but it isn't, because we're the ones that it's directly affecting, okay? It's not directly affecting you guys.
So respect.
Now, we already have these trucks here. I'm still finishing my process.
I've heard what you said many, many times.
And you
Listen,
can, so what is the regard for
we-
tomorrow
we-
about finding these trucks
Call
tomorrow?
the police. We don't have the authority to ticket. We don't have the control.
And
over the
you've
police.
told us to call the police, and what does it do?
Then you need to call
No.
them again.
Okay,
I'm
you're just
sorry,
gonna say
but
the same thing over and over.
You are telling us things that we've tried to deal with. We've had the police go, the town administrator has directed the police.
And
There's
you
been a
said
police
you gave
presence,
out
but that-
warnings. You
Understood.
gave out warnings.
Sir, listen.
Okay, you can shush
Understand-
me, but I can't finish
Sir,
my,
listen.
okay, that makes sense. Go
Understand
ahead.
that we
Finish
do
what
not
you're
have,
saying.
we do not have control over the police. We don't have police powers. We don't make the laws. We don't enforce the laws. I suggest that you
Call them again?
focus your energy and complain to the people that are paid to respond to those problems. Call the police,
We did.
call the public safety officer, speak to the selectman, call the town administrator. All of those people have authority and the discretion to deal with that problem. We don't. We have gone as far as we possibly can.
No,
to
you haven't,
correct-
because you guys can hit stop right now before it gets worse.
I
It's
can
not as far
guarantee
as you
that
can. It's not as far as you can.
I
It's
know,
not.
the only people I know that aren't parking their trucks on the side of that road
Is this gentleman's company over here?
is these people right here. They're not even there yet. To hold them accountable.
We haven't even started at their problem yet. We haven't even just started their trucking problem that's come to our community yet. We're dealing with this. Why don't we deal with this first before that happens?
I agree. So let's
I'm
call
not
the police.
answering that now.
Let's call the police. Let's call the safety officer. Let's call the town administrator. Let's call the chair of the selectmen. All of those people, all of those organizations has the authority to address that situation. We have gone as far as we could with our poor powers to help you and correct that solution. I'm sorry, we can't do anything else. This is the plan.
Why can't we find out what's going in there and how many hours, why they need to run 24 hours?
Because it's
But-
being built to specs.
Brian, do
They
you
they knew
agree?
that at the
Do
beginning.
you agree
the
that
first
we could
meeting.
put things in place for these applicants within some kind of cleaning program within whatever we come up with? Do you think that's doable? Cleaning the perimeter of their property 4
Well, I
times
think
a
we
year.
can put that in the
It's-
OEM.
Is that something that you think would be
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
going forward,
going forward with?
and to be honest with you, that all property owners have a responsibility to maintain their property.
The language is tough for some of them, but I think if we can work with these applicants and the ones that we have on the plate to tighten some of this up, I'm hoping we can address some of your concerns. And,
Sure,
I think
and
we
the
need
trash
to
is
move
just one of our
and
concerns.
we've heard them, and I think we need to, we'll work with developers as best we can to come up with language that all of us, because we all want this to be.
Can we request that it's straightforward, that everybody in town and that comes to these meetings can understand this? So it's not written in these words that nobody is gonna understand, a straightforward language, perhaps?
Are you
Where-
thinking more like just something for the next go around, like something in regards to just
In
the
regards
trash
to
and
whatever
cleaning?
the town needs to, the board needs to accept from their company, whether it be the stipulation of 148 or whatever, however.
Should you,
We're
my,
gonna
because, Jim,
let it.
the letter is rather straightforward.
Okay, so if somebody appeals that land and it doesn't pass, then these guys are not gonna purchase it, correctly? Gentlemen, is that what's gonna happen?
would
If
ask
that land
Mr.
gets appealed, my question is to the development.
Attorney Antonellis,
If that gets appealed, they're not gonna be giving up that land, correct? No matter how you word it?
I'm not going to commit to anything along those lines. I'm not going to negotiate that.
All right, and I will
with the
just
business
see what gets worded to the next. We'll push it and wait again. All right,
I
I'm good
didn't
with
hear-
waiting and seeing what's gonna be worded next. I can wait.
I see a hand up somewhere.
Jim,
And
Jim?
Casey.
Hey, guys. So just addressing that one real quick. So obviously, so the letter to the board is for their consideration from the applicant. You know, I think the board's job and my job is to then take that in and refine it for the town's best interests. So the language that you see there, understood, it is a little convoluted, at least in my opinion. But I think if it gets to a point of a decision time, obviously you'll be able to see what that decision looks like. And those decision terms will not be spelled out by the applicant. They will be spelled out by the town and the board. And so things such as, you know, obligations are at building permit or obligations to, say, commit to donating the land at occupancy is standard language that we would do to protect the town, you know, moving forward. That's all. And also, Mr. Chairman, there, Casey did have her hand up for a while, if we could.
I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
Hi. Casey
Hi, how are
with
you?
Property at 226 Depot Street. I'm doing well, and you?
Fine, thank you.
So I know traffic has been beat to death tonight. I have a comment about it, but it's not anything that's been said yet. I promise. So everything that's been said about these mitigation measures for traffic have all been about making sure that traffic flows better. Obviously, traffic is a concern. That area near Best Buy, a truck going through 2 lanes of trucks pulled off to the side with oncoming traffic is never a good idea. There's been no discussions of how to mitigate the actual amount of traffic coming to and from this warehouse. I understand that some of that might be impossible to do because there is no tenant known, but is there anything the applicant can do besides putting in a break room to say, we will make sure that there are less cars on the road, less trucks on the road? How can they do that? Because that's where the problem is. I mean, we're looking at a 40% increase in traffic. Let me double check if that was morning or PM. A 35% increase in traffic in the evening and a 44% increase in traffic in the morning during peak hours on Depot Street. How can they bring those numbers down? Because that would be something that I would look at as working to mitigate the traffic problem that this will cause on Depot Street. We already know it's bad. We are concerned that the volume added will make it much, much worse. How can we make it not as bad? How can we make sure that there are fewer vehicles coming down Depot Street? That's my question. That's the type of mitigation that I have not seen in the traffic studies. Like I said, they've mentioned putting in a break room, potentially putting in, having some sort of ride share, but they don't determine how the tenant is going to do that. So what are some concrete steps they could take to make sure there are less cars on the road from their site? Those are my questions. I think that's the only way we can improve the project would be to make sure that they have less of an impact. And that's the big thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Relative to any traffic, I can defer to Sean Kelly. However, just any development will increase traffic. That is what happens, but that is why a traffic report is done. It analyzes the traffic, it quantifies the traffic, and then appropriate mitigation is provided. So there's been a bunch of information provided to the board, and frankly, there's been information provided to the board that really greatly exceeds what this project will generate, just at the request of the board to analyze that level of traffic. That has been done. We identified that there's an existing intersection that is failing, which is why we've offered to commit funds to fix that existing failing intersection.
Mhm.
Without us there, that intersection is failing.
Mhm.
We're trying to make it better.
And I think you've heard, we're looking at a long-term correction there.
That's correct.
And that's why we want to have your money set aside. So if and when we do correct it, it's done correctly. I've heard some opponents of this feel the light will not help right now, that it will make it worse, and that they do see the benefits of a long-term correction for something in that area. Casey, I don't have a magic answer. I apologize. I don't.
Oh, I don't expect you to, but that's where my question comes in, is as they're talking about these mitigation measures, how can they put less vehicles on the road? How can they design something that puts less vehicles on the road and therefore less stress on Depot Street, less traffic jams at the Best Buy area, less chances of me getting hit crossing the road to get to my mailbox? How can we ensure that the roads are safer with them there? And like I said, I get it, a light on Hartford Ave, it is what it is. But I feel like that addresses the traffic flow, not the volume. And a lot of the issues that we're having, a lot of the things that people are bringing up are volume based, not traffic flow. Yes, it might help to have a light there, but you still have 1,000 plus extra vehicles a day on Depot Street as a result of this one new development, which results in, like I said, a 35 and a 44% increase in traffic during peak hours.
Can I just ask Jim one question before I misspeak, Casey? And I think you alluded to it. When we did our study, we looked at the optimal outgrowth of your facility, correct? We looked for a high end, which is most likely will not happen, correct?
Correct.
That'll be substantially less, or will be less than the numbers you have provided to us.
That is correct.
But we did our due diligence and looked, it got me in trouble, but the worst case scenario for traffic.
That is correct.
And then, hopefully it will not be that bad. So as you talk about your numbers, we don't know if it will come to that, because we looked again at building it out to a high-use facility.
These numbers weren't based on the high-use facility. These numbers were based on the standard warehouse.
Okay, thank you for correcting me.
Mr. Chairman, if I could talk, it's Sean Kelly with Vanessa Associates representing the applicant. To be clear, the 1,000 plus vehicles per day were absolutely based on the worst case scenario with the high cube distribution facility. The actual warehouse that we're looking to build, which is what we expect the traffic will generate, is 380 vehicles a day total. That's 190 in, 190 out, and that's over the course of a full day. So certainly it's not 1,000. With respect to the peak hour traffic, again, that we're talking about, the peak hour traffic amounts to approximately 50 vehicles per hour. That's the total volume. And again, about half of this traffic we expect to go north, about half of this traffic we expect to go south. So any portion of Depot Street to the north or south sees about 25 trips an hour during the busiest hour of roadway traffic. So you're talking about less than one car or one vehicle every 2 minutes. The impacts of the traffic, quite frankly, are not significant given that level of increase, but we have committed, as John pointed out, substantial mitigation measures at the intersection of Hartford and Depot that more than offset the impact of this traffic. Certainly there are going to be employee trips. People work here. You're going to have people coming and going, during commuter hours. And unfortunately, this town is not well served by public transportation, so there aren't a lot of options in terms of ways to reduce the number of commuter trips. We have agreed to put, preferential parking for carpoolers, looking at things such as a guaranteed ride home if you carpool to work and you had to leave for an emergency. So they're certainly looking to do what they can to reduce the number of commuter trips, and certainly that was spelled out in our study. But at the end of the day, it's a warehouse. People are going to be working there. They're going to be coming during peak hours. But these flows, based on what we expect this will be, are going to be in the order of a car every 2 minutes or less on any segment of Depot Street or intersection that has impact. And we feel that our mitigation commitments more than offset that impact. And in fact, will make things better than they are, as they are today. So, but just to be clear though, the 1,000 trips is not what we expect to be at this facility. The actual number is 380. The 1,000 trips is the high cube distribution facility that we did more as a sensitivity analysis just to show the mitigation would work, but it certainly is not what we're expecting on a daily or peak hour basis.
Thank you for clarification.
My bad, I was looking at the total traffic on Depot Street, which, given traffic growth, is estimated to be 1,856 vehicles, not including, I believe that's under the no build condition. In 2028, no build condition in 2028 is 1,856 vehicles, which would be an additional then 380 vehicles on Depot Street, at which point it then is in peak hours, the 35 and 44% increases over the no build expected traffic, which is still a lot, and does result, when you include them, in more than one vehicle per minute. So yes, there's a lot of traffic, and maybe they are not the vast majority, but they are not a drop in the bucket either. 380 is still quite a bit of traffic, and it does still add to the volume, and it could still, cause problems on parts of Depot Street. So what we were saying was ways to reduce the amount of vehicles, other than, things that they don't have a true plan for. How can they come up with ways to mitigate when they say, oh, well, we'll put a ride share in place? How are they, as the owner, going to do that and enforce the tenants do that? Because when I spoke to them on the phone the first time, they said, well, we'll just make sure the tenants do that. But how are you going to make sure the tenants are doing that? How are you going to say, yes, ride share here, as the owner, as opposed to the tenants having to implement this stuff? How are you, as the owner, going to make sure these are implemented to reduce the number of vehicles on the road coming to and from Depot Street from your facility? Because in the end, it's not just traffic flow, it is traffic volume, and it is still a 35% increase on Depot Street in the PM and a 44% increase on Depot Street in the AM hour. That's what their study said. Those were their numbers, not mine.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I think we need to continue this to the next meeting.
Move on.
Yeah, we have another
We have another thing.
item on the agenda this evening. What is the date? We have to
The
extend the
28th,
decision date.
We have, the warrant articles are on the 28th. And then we have 353 Maple Street on April 28th. May 12th would be our next.
What I
meeting.
probably would like to do is extend it to May 12th.
Works.
So I would need a motion to extend this discussion on 150 Depot Street to May 12th.
Mr. Chairman, Attorney Antonellis has his hand up.
Yes,
Chair,
sir.
if I may, and I understand the complexities of this meeting, I certainly do, but I'm not certain that the applicant has any further information to submit. To the best of my knowledge, we have met all of the requirements or the suggestions that have been made by your peer review consultants, and it was my understanding that the plans relative to the location of the building, stormwater management, et cetera, have been fairly well pinned down. And I don't believe that the span of 2 or 3 weeks is going to provide an updated traffic study. I believe that Sean's study was comprehensively done and comprehensively reviewed. So to the extent that the board wishes to continue it, if you have any specific direction of the applicant for answering any questions, I'd appreciate it. But I appreciate knowing that. But frankly, I was hoping that the public hearing would be closed this evening. I'm certainly never in a position to tell your board what to do. You know that. But again, I'm just wondering what another meeting is going to do and what the board wants to discuss at it.
I think some of the neighbors and amongst ourselves. And I think Jim indicated he could work with you on the language for the mitigation package. So hopefully we could have that finalized and presented on May 12th.
Mr. Chairman, if you'd like, I know you guys did discuss a few small things in terms of the O&M plan that you would like to have beefed up some.
Correct.
If you like that presented, and maybe if Mr. Kelly could provide maybe some out of the box enhanced, ride sharing programs that I know he's well versed in all those programs. And meanwhile, I could start drafting some conditions for the board's consideration at the future meeting.
I think that would be appropriate. Would you like to amend your motion or?
Yeah, that's fine. Continue to make that.
Yes.
Second.
All in favor of continuation to May 12th, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. I want to thank you all for coming out, and hopefully we'll see you on the 12th.
I just want to apologize to you all for my outburst. I didn't mean to be.
We're still in a public thing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to apologize for outburst.
You're fine.
To
You're
you.
fine.
We appreciate that.
We
I felt bad.
appreciate-
I apologize.
You're fine. It's all good. All right, so 2:06. Let's take a 2-minute.
Yeah.
Anybody need a 2-minute? Works.
Thursday, April 14th, Bellingham Planning Board meeting. The next item on the agenda is 206 Mechanic Street. This is continuation of a public hearing. Jim, can you bring us up to date and where we are now?
Absolutely. So the last we left 206 Mechanic Street, the board was scheduling a site walk that was conducted. I'm sure the board will get into those discussions in a moment. In addition, the board had asked for a number of improvements to the plan set, which you have in your package this evening, and I'm sure the applicant will be prepared to discuss, mostly revolving around proper turning movements for truck traffic as a result of our discussions at our last meeting, as well as improved landscaping and architectural features and elevations, as well as the signage placement. So a number of things in your package for this evening, and I'm sure we can get into that sidewalk discussion momentarily.
For the record, John Cusick with Fuller Engineering, and nice to see you all again. As Jim had mentioned, I think when we last saw the board, we had a site walk a couple Saturdays ago, which I thought was very beneficial, to be honest. When we first talked about a site walk, my initial thought was, we can all see the site from the road, it's a prominent location. However, from being on the site, it was a great site walk. I think it was very beneficial to folks for being out there and seeing exactly where the building is, where the driveways are, how everything lays out. At that site walk, we paid particular attention to the driveways and really the turning operations. That's what we heard at the prior meeting of the board. In particular, the board was very interested as to where the driveways were located and how did the turning movements work at each driveway. So we went through that at the meeting, and we've submitted a plan that really further shows how those driveways operate. We'll call up real quick. The first has to do with the truck movements on site. So what you're looking at on screen is the site plan, and it shows that the truck maneuver into the site from Mechanic Street. So as you're entering essentially from 495 in Franklin, coming towards the site, you'll notice you approach the driveway in Mechanic Street, which is located directly across from the Rapid Refill driveway. We looked at that in the field. As you come in the site, there's a very wide radius, so that allows a tractor trailer to enter the property at that location while staying within their designated travel lane. Again, I think there was concern of the board. You want to ensure that they didn't need to sweep out to sweep in to then impact other traffic operations. So we've provided that that's the main traffic movement into the site for trucks, and that's geometry. Heading on the Maple Street side, we have well, actually, if you go back, Brenda, I'm sorry, and we've got an island there. You can see the island that is added. So even though trucks come in there, only trucks exiting can go right. So we've got a hard physical island to prevent trucks from exiting left, because that was a concern of the board as well, to not cross Mechanic Street. So that was the geometry of that island. And again, that's a very low traffic flow, but regardless, that wasn't the circulation pattern that the board wanted, and we agree. We don't think they should go the other way. On Maple Street, we don't think trucks are going to enter that way. The easiest way into the site, and it's the way that frankly all trucks want to get into the site, is through that entrance there. It's closest on Mechanic. However, if a truck happened to go down Maple Street, we wanted to make sure that they had enough area to get into the site. So you'll notice that we have a striped area to sort of say, hey, you shouldn't do that. But if a truck came in there, we wanted to allow them to get in there so they don't have to go down the street towards some residential areas that are down the street. So we've put that backup measure in there to allow that maneuver should it happen. And again, from trucks exiting onto Maple Street, you'll notice again a very wide sweeping curb radius there, the purpose of which again was when a truck exits the site, they're staying within their lane, not sweeping over and impacting the traffic flow on Maple Street. Again, we've got a hard island and a striped island there for that traffic pattern. So that has been incorporated into the set to show how trucks will access and exit the site and the geometry of the driveways. From a employee standpoint, pretty simple. Again, you typically don't want your truck traffic, or your employee traffic to go to the truck court. That's a no-no with these types of buildings. So all of our trucks, all our employees are entering the site off of Maple Street, and they come in and take a left into the parking field in that area. There'll be proper signage to say, do not enter. You don't want them going behind the building. And there's signage on the other entrance that essentially says trucks only. So the employees that work there will know, but if somebody's visiting for whatever reason, we have signage as well to further show that. As we submitted to the board, I won't go through that, but as part of what we've sent, and for your peer reviewer look at it, we did do the truck turning movements to substantiate what I'm saying. So that was an important part of really what we looked at in the field and what's been sent back to you. Another item that we had discussed at the last meeting, and we talked about it out in the field as well. Everybody was interested with where the building was. We visited the building corners to see where it is, where it sat on the site. And again, remembering that it's set back about 70 feet, we looked at the stakes that were actually behind the existing building to give you a perspective of how far back from the street that this building is and where it's located. But there was also discussion about, we thought we actually came up with a decent plan from an elevation standpoint, architectural elevation. But there was talk about, well, that's great. What else can you do? Because this really is a prominent location at that corner. So we've enhanced the elevations that we previously submitted to the board, and we've essentially put additional renderings in there to show some of the landscaping that we had on there. So this is the view of the building from the intersection of Maple and Mechanic. You can see where the sign is located, which I'll get into in a moment. But relative to the architecture and the building, again, reiterating the building set down about 6 feet or so from the intersection, so it's a little bit lower in grade. And then that corner, you'll notice that you've got call it a multi-layered element. You've got 2 glass structures there, different articulation, different colors to really break up that building. What we previously had was then after that corner, we just continued with the building, kind of went in and out, which I thought looked nice. So it was requested, what else can you do? So it's hard to see from this angle, but where the cursor is right now, thank you, Brandon. We've actually added another glass feature midway through the building. So it looks like a separate office midway through the building to further break up the midpoint. And then if you continue to the opposite driveway, and again, this is the far driveway on Maple Street. Again, we don't anticipate having an office there, but we've added that same structure that's on the front corner of the building to really end cap that. So it looks like you've got offices on 2 corners and then one right in the middle to really break up that building. So we think that's a really nice step, and I think that's in line with what the board was looking for in that regard. Additionally, there was a lot of discussion relative to the sign. Again, it was brought up very early on based on this location that we wanted to provide a welcome to Bellingham sign at the corner, which the applicant is fully committed to doing and providing. However, there was a lot of questions about what kind of sign. It's not like it's a zoning bylaw that say thou shalt do this. It's very subjective. So you asked us to take a look at what we thought might look nice there while giving us some guidance. And the guidance that we really heard was stone, because you get stone on the other side, you get stone going down Maple. So we wanted to incorporate stone. I think we didn't have stone before. And we liked the wood element that was there. So you'll notice what's shown here is like the wood placard that says welcome to Bellingham. And then we've added some, call it cornice features on the top with multi elevation. So the side, you've got the cornice feature, and then it bumps up where the sign is. We've also added, you can see it below, I don't know how well you can see it from the screen, but it's at the Purple Heart community. That was actually raised at the ZBA meeting, and that was a commitment that we had mentioned, had heard from the ZBA, and we said when we move forward, we would incorporate that. So we're showing that on the sign. So we think this is a nice looking sign. We think it fits in well with what exists there today with some of the other features. It doesn't like stand out in a bad way. We think it fits in, but really enhances that. However, we also acknowledge that it's not our sign, it's your sign. So we're certainly welcome to feedback, thoughts, anything. When we're at the site walk, we put the stake in the ground to kind of show where we thought the sign made sense. And similarly, we'll work with you after the fact as well to say, I don't want it there, I want it here, I don't want this sign this way, I want it that way. We're open to working with you on that, but you asked us to provide what we thought made sense, and this is what we think is a good representation. So that is the new information that we have provided to you by way of submittals. You have received a peer review letter back from your traffic and engineering consultant. Again, when we were in the field, we spent a lot of time talking about our proposed mitigation, and our proposed mitigation, what we believe makes sense is the right-hand turn lane on Maple Street. Again, there exists a right-hand turn lane today. However, it's very small and it really doesn't function, I think, the way it was probably envisioned to when it was constructed. So what we had thought and what we ran the numbers was if we extended that turn lane further down the Maple Street, we're giving up the property to be able to do that. That might be why they didn't go all the way the first time. You have to go down an appropriate distance to get that multiple stacking cars in there, so that lane can actually work as a turn lane, where if cars or trucks are in the middle lane, folks can keep getting by it and it doesn't get bogged down and thus queue further back. That was sent out, and I don't want to speak for your peer reviewer, but from reading the comment letter, it appears as though they thought that made sense, that the way the study was prepared was in line. And the big comment was really, you got to work with DOT. It's DOT is going to have some input on what might happen if a signal needs to be timed or something along those lines, which we fully acknowledge and have had early meetings with DOT, certainly during the ENF NEPA process. And if further coordination with DOT is needed through this process, we'll certainly deal with that with the driveways. We think that makes sense, and we think that's the appropriate mitigation. So with that, that was a lot of me speaking. That's really what's happened between last meeting and where we stand today.
Okay. Why don't you start?
The island,
Mhm.
what's that gonna be made of?
The raised island, it'll be a curb.
What's the curb gonna be at?
I'm not sure if we specified, but I envisioned that if we didn't, that should be a granite
I was
island
gonna say,
in that
because
area.
snowplows will take
It-
that thing and put it in
absolutely.
the sidewalk. for a
Typically, on
snowstorm.
those curves, you'd want that. and
Yeah, that way you can fight the snowplow.
We'll make sure that's specified. I don't recall if it is, because essentially what our goal is now. I apologize. So
Yeah.
we're hearing all your comments
It's
now.
just
Then
that
we're gonna give
this
you the
winter,
updated-
I've watched them just peel them up like they weren't even there.
You're absolutely right.
Is there gonna be any signage in that?
Yes, 'cause I think sometimes when you don't add signage in there is if you need to mount the curb
Yeah.
to go over it, then you won't have a sign in there. Under this case, we've made the geometry such that the truck can get in and out without needing to mount the curb. So we typically would have the signage that, shows you have the symbol as an island, and it shows the arrow going around it.
Right. I was gonna say that may not last long either. Every island we have in town, they're all gone. And they last 6 months, or one season. I noticed them all over town. There used to be signs, but they're not there anymore. So
Yeah,
I
sometimes
don't know if you
along.
wanted to maybe put them maybe a little more on the property.
Yep.
For your trucks to see, and try to put as little out that on that island as possible.
I'll work with our traffic consultant,
Okay.
Sean Kelly, on that.
And just one other thing, that building is absolutely beautiful, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, we're happy with it.
It's just a shame that they're gonna put a telephone pole, a bunch of spaghetti and a black box in front of it that we don't see on this remnants here. That's kind of destroys that look, but that is actually, I love what you did.
Yeah, and I think from the different angles, there might be an angle where you see,
Yeah.
the pole and whatnot, but as you're
It
going
looks
through
more like
that-
an office building than a warehouse.
The goal was to make it look nice, to add landscaping that breaks it up, so it's
Right.
still not, right in your face, but what you can see looks
Right, I love it,
nice.
thank you.
And your comments led to that, so thank you for your
You're
comments.
welcome.
I'm up next. I also really like the building. It looks good. The sign's really nice too. I like it a lot. I'm really happy about the raised islands.
Yeah, in this case.
Really happy?
Really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we're able to do that. Like we showed on Maple Street, that the island's smaller and we had to put the stripe because we wanted to let a truck get in if they went the wrong way.
Yep.
But there's still a raised island there.
Yeah, and I think I totally understand that. It makes sense. I think can you actually zoom in to that? I just wanted to see the alignment, because the one issue is I just would want to make sure that the truck won't want to exit out that larger curb cut and take a left onto Maple Street, hence the reason for that raised island. Maybe, if it's possible, as a deterrent, rather than do a striped island, if there might be a way to modify that based on the truck turn template, where it'll all be a raised island, a portion of it's mountable.
I see what you're saying. So the island that we currently show could be a raised island, and the striped portion could be a mountable island.
Correct. So even the portion that is pointed towards the warehouse, if that is raised, and then just the area along Maple Street that does get mounted becomes, like a concrete apron mountable.
No, I understand what you're saying. It's an excellent comment, and I think that would further deter.
Yeah.
It would allow the truck to come in an emergency. They would go over that, right? You could
Yeah.
do the 3-inch sloped granite with the concrete on top, where you could kind of go over that. It would, cars wouldn't go over that, and if the truck sees it, it's visible. They know.
Yeah, no, I think that would work, and I think fire truck access should be perfect, too. Yeah.
Yeah, as long as there's not a sign in there, the fire
Well,
truck wouldn't.
There will be at the beginning.
Yep, we'll work with Sean on that, make sure everything's appropriate there, but I think that's a great comment.
All right. And then just one last question. Did you look into the stormwater stuff as regarding the isolator rows?
Oh, yeah.
So that, you're still gonna do the isolator row, there's not gonna be a water quality unit or anything prior?
No, we were good with that. I think we honestly talked about it a couple of meetings ago. But yeah, we looked into that, and the isolator row will act as pre-treatment.
Okay. All right. That's all I've got.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Just to brainstorm out loud, if a truck is coming from Franklin, say, and coming towards Bellingham and approaches Maple Street, is there a situation in which a truck might say, you know what, I'm going to take a right and take a left into the, I'm going to take a right onto Maple and take a left into the facility? Will that situation ever be enticing to a truck? Is there any? I know that the right-hand turn onto Maple Street from 140 that lane is relatively small, so I don't think they gain much in, if it's backed up. I just don't want that to become some sort of good option,
I think the most direct route, and that's typically what most people would end up doing, is the straight through mechanic. So I think that's what they would do. I don't think there's anything we could do to prevent that, short of putting a hard curb and not letting them turn in. But I do think if we did that, if that ever happened, that would, probably cause more impact than doing that. So I think
sending the truck down to somehow turn around.
Exactly. Yeah, so if a truck came down and realized, hey, there's a hard island that I can't get over, they're going to then go down the street and figure out where they can turn around, and that's the last thing that we want to do.
Okay. So if a truck was coming down Maple towards the intersection there, is it discouraged from taking a right into the facility at that point?
Oh, so you're saying if someone was past our site coming
They
coming
got
to
off
Maple
at
towards the intersection?
126. Yeah, they got off at
from
126.
126 coming down Maple, say, I'm going to take there's an accident, I want to get off at 126 coming that way. Correct. So you'll notice the radius of the curb that we've got there. If you zoom up, you can't make that.
They can't make it.
Yeah. So we did not want to encourage that turn from being allowed, because that way, if somebody did happen to come that way, we don't want to let them in that way. They'd have to come all the way out, and they'd never do that again, because that was.
And that curb that's there to discourage that, that's not something that your truck can just ride over.
No. And then you'll have a wall that's not too far from there, and a guardrail and a fence.
Okay.
So even if they rode over the curb, they'd end up hitting something.
All right. So I was surprised. I didn't realize how close the driveway is to the other abutting property. And it's not so much your problem, and I understand that when I'm saying this. That particular neighbor is well hidden now, and it's I think it's a concrete company, not concrete, but tar or something like that. And I always thought to myself that, wow, that when they designed that, they really hit it well, because that's a really ugly operation. And I'm concerned that if we're clearing a lot of this land, which has acted as a screen to that property, that we're going to have visibility into their operation, which has been blocked. And I understand why I'm saying this. I understand it's not really your problem. But is there any solutions or clever ideas where we can maintain something or do something to kind of create some sort of buffer or screening there? And I understand. It's that funny. I would feel funny asking you to deal with their problem, but if we're there, is there something we can do to hide that?
So I don't know is the short answer. And the reason I say that, normally, we'd be happy to plant trees and buffers and whatnot. But there's not a lot of area between that driveway and the property line. And we're up higher. Remember, if we're out in the field, right, it dropped way down. We're gonna be up higher, going
Yeah.
with the road elevation essentially. They're gonna be lower. So I think maybe the elevation itself might serve as a screen with the trees that we're putting there.
That's the operation.
Yeah.
I think this is all on their property.
There's maples here. Yeah, they're set back far. Yeah, so from looking at the aerial, do you have the ability to call it an aerial, Brandon? So that's the Wayne's phone. What I think you'll see in a minute, like the way their driveway actually comes in, the driveway comes in, but then it curves and goes back, which I'll show you in a moment, which I believe our building is gonna essentially be screening their building still.
Okay.
So I don't think you'll see that, but I'll call up an aerial. I think it will be a little bit more clear. So where, I just kind of sketch it, like where our building is yep, right about there. Again, we're call it 70, 80 feet off of Maple Street. Where their driveway is, it comes in, if you zoom out a little bit, Brandon, you see their building is gonna be back behind our building. So you may see their drive coming in a little bit, although it will be, it'd be a little bit lower than ours. Their operation is back into their site a little bit more. And I think our building will screen that. What I will do is I can put, just to show you at the next meeting, is we'll just blow out an aerial, we'll put our building on it, just so you can see exactly how.
Yeah,
that-
if you
how
don't
that
mind.
is.
And if there's something you can do that's cost effective, relatively speaking, in terms of just making sure that we don't create another problem.
We'll look at it. I honestly think, because I don't think I have the ability to add more planting in that area, which is what I normally do, but I think when I show you that overlay, I think it'll be clear that that's likely gonna be behind our building, and that's what we'll be screening it.
I appreciate you looking at that. And just,
I think the landowner may have some.
Yeah, the warehouse next door, when you go in their driveway, they have a retention pond there with a berm, and they have a row of, I don't know what kind of trees, but they're great, like cedar trees or something along there now, hedges or bushes, so they're pretty well screened at the front part, going most of the way back to the end of their building, then it turns.
Okay.
There is screening there that they've already put in. They
All
could
right.
probably do the same thing, add to it.
yeah, I appreciate it if you can
We'll
take
take
a
a
look. If you could, just one more question. If you could go back to the, that exit, but on your plan set there. And just if you could, yeah, if you can move it right there. Where the Maple Street will divide into the multiple lanes. That's how further down Maple Street does that start to happen?
I'm not sure I followed the question.
Yeah, so it was a poorly worded question. So the exit coming out of the facility onto Maple Street, where that sweep is.
Yep.
Enters Maple Street. Where on Maple Street does it start to fork out to the left lane and then to the right lane?
Oh, okay, so on the screen, we actually have that shown here. So it's about a couple hundred feet.
Okay.
Up. You see that line, if you trace the line right about there, yeah, right there, is where that transition curve starts.
Okay, and where does the existing left turn lane start? Further up.
It's pretty close to that. It's just up of that, closer to the intersection. That's where the split starts.
So, and again, just thinking this through out loud, is there any scenario where trucks leaving the facility will block the intended relief from those different lanes, the left or the right? If all of the trucks left all at once, basically, Or do we have problems where we're defeating what we're trying to do?
So I don't, I'll let Sean correct me if I don't explain this well. But first off, relative to your last comment, with this type of facility, it's different than what you're dealing with Amazon, where they're on a shift and then bang, all the vans go at once.
Yeah.
And that's part of what happens at the intersection now. They let all those vans go at once. With this type of facility, they're spread out, and it's not as though they're gonna say, great, 3 trucks, go, and they all leave at once. So they are separated. Beyond that, there is, I want to say, close to 250 feet of turn lane in that area, where you've got, with the dedicated pocket where the trucks could be. So you could have, a few trucks that are piled up in there and still get around it.
Okay.
And that was part of really the thought process on our end, why we thought that was the appropriate mitigation. Because now you're absolutely right. That's the issue. If you've got a couple trucks that are there, it all falls apart. You can't get around them. Now, by extending that right-hand turn lane, you've got the ability to go right around that and kind of carry on your way.
Okay. All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Nope, thank you.
Talking about driveways, thinking long-term. One of the things I noticed on Mechanic Street was that as you go, the set of lights there, one of the features of the set of lights is the bicycle trails. The bicycle trails look like they come down a little bit down the intersection, but don't go as far as your driveway. And I know this is a state, the state has jurisdiction on this road, but if you guys talk to them, or actually, you can see it on the plan there, right?
Sure, it stops there.
So it stops, but it doesn't cross your driveway. So thinking long-term, if you've got a bicycle path there, what would be the option of trying to keep that past your property? If we're thinking long-term here, is there any way to try to incorporate that into this plan where the bicycle path goes down the street past your property? Because then you're putting the new driveway in, and this is the time to think about that stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think to do that, that would be essentially a DOT widening on their road to essentially widen that whole section along our frontage, I believe.
You're going to them anyway, though, with the driveway and stuff, right?
We need a curb cut permit from them.
And the curb cut is right there where the actual bicycle path ends, right? So that is right in the jurisdiction of this conversation, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think you'd end up adding kind of 100 feet, because then once you hit that, then you end up.
Yeah, 100, but it's past yours, and you're building now, and maybe somebody else will build later. I don't know if that's a hardship to think about things like that, but to me, the bicycle path ends right in front of your driveway, and we're trying to get, if that's what we're trying to do is keep those things going, then this is the time to actually look at that. And I'm wondering if there's anything we could do in this conversation about moving that forward in there. And I know it's probably a DOT conversation, but if you guys are doing the curb cut anyway, then that should be part of the conversation and the plans. And I don't know what it would do to your drawing and you'd probably have to move the driveway back a little bit into the property, right? To get the sweeps in and stuff like that. But I guess I'd like to have you think about that.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, I do like the islands and the movements. Was concerned about going into the other lanes and stuff like that, but I think the sweeps that you have
works well.
Yeah, has our peer review looked at this?
They haven't looked. They looked at the plan prior, and
Yeah.
I think I don't want to speak for Frank, but I don't think as of this hearing they've had the time to look at the sweeps.
I don't think they have. Okay, so Jim, can we have Frank look at that? Just to make sure that there's no issues with the sweeps. I don't see a problem, but just to, is that part of
Yeah, absolutely, Frank is on if you have any questions directly for him, but yes, you can absolutely look at that.
Yeah, Frank, probably haven't had a chance to look at that, so I'll hold up unless you really feel like you want to add something now.
I think you're muted, Frank.
All right, fine. Good afternoon, and we haven't looked at this. We'll be happy to look at that. I'm a little disappointed that our traffic engineer couldn't be here tonight, so I studied his report. I talked with him at length. I spent hours getting ready, and John stole all our thunder. So from the report, the latest peer review.
I was trying to make it easy for you, Frank.
I know, I appreciate that. We'll take a look at this. Again, I think the sweeps look okay, but obviously we want to spend a little bit of time on that. I think it's well thought out and it looks good, but we will do the detailed check of this material as well. I do have one very minor comment, and it's almost insignificant to bring up, but one of the questions that we had looking at the access coming off of Mechanic Street is, where do you put the no left turn sign or left turn prohibited? You noted in your reports and stuff, and again, it's not critical, but I'm presuming that you're going to put it in somewhere where you got right there. Yeah, I think that would be something that'd be really handy. I question would be, would you put a no left turn on the island so that people coming down Mechanic Street and wanting to take a left in, they're going eastbound on Mechanic? Just a very minor comment that the traffic engineer had.
Sorry, so are you saying, I understand when you're exiting the
Yep.
site, that was clear to me. So you're saying entering the site, if somebody was coming from, call it the center of town, to prevent them from taking a left in?
Yeah.
I don't think, I'll let Sean speak. I don't think there's really gonna be much traffic at all coming from that direction, but if there was, I think you probably would want them to go left there rather than go down Maple. But Sean, please chime in on that.
No, that's right. I mean, the intent here really is to avoid the exiting left turns because it's an unsignalized movement, and those movements are better accommodated and safer to happen at Maple Street where there's a traffic signal. Most of the truck activity that we're projecting, is going to be coming from the east, from the 495 interchange. But to the extent there is some trucking activity, minor activity that occurs from the west from downtown, we certainly wouldn't want to preclude that movement, because ultimately, if they can't make the left there, then they're forced to go through the traffic signal and make the left on Maple, where we're not proposing to have that activity happen. So most of it, won't be coming from the west. It would be east, from the interchange. But to the extent they do come that way, we want to ensure they can get into the site. We just don't want to have those uncontrolled lefts leaving when there's an option at Maple Street where it's signalized.
Okay, well, that sounds reasonable.
So I just wanted to go back to something that the applicant's attorney brought up in a previous meeting about putting language within the lease documents about fines for trucks turning the wrong way and not going the right way. I did a little due diligence in my own network, and I come to find that it is not extremely common, but it is language that they've seen in lease documents. So I think we should seriously consider exploring that as part of our findings or however conditions. So I'm hoping maybe the applicant can, or their attorney can come with some common fines or common language that they see or have used, so that we can understand, what are those fines? Do tenants, are they deterred from that kind of language in leases, given that he offered that as a suggestion?
If it's okay, Mr. Chairman, I just want to respond. It's Paul Feldman. I made the suggestion. It's not, I don't believe I suggested that we would build into the lease that there is some kind of fine. We're not going to be in the fine enforcement business. What I suggested that we do, and what I would do, is that it would be an obligation of the tenant to make sure that trucks were following the traffic pattern that was being requested. And that if we found that a tenant was not properly monitoring, it would be a breach of their lease.
Yes,
Because we'll
right,
put
right.
the obligation in. So if the tenant is breaching the lease, first of all, we have a mechanism to enforce them from breach by telling them that their lease can be terminated, which no tenant wants to see happen once they've invested in the property. So we're going to get a permit hopefully we'll get a permit from the planning board that's going to have conditions in it that talk about the turning movements that the planning board has been desiring and we're prepared to build. And the link that I want to suggest happen is that there's a condition in our permit that says the landlord's leases will provide that this condition be followed by the tenants. And therefore, if you come knocking on our door saying, look, this tenant is not complying with our condition, we have a mechanism to enforce it because it's a breach of their lease.
Thank you for clarifying. Yeah, so I think we should certainly explore that, given the grievances we've heard from residents on Maple Street and abutters. And if this is a mechanism that we can use to enforce something that we're all concerned about, I think it would be good to consider as a condition.
And we could work with we could work with Jim when we get to the condition stage, that when we're describing the condition that talks about traffic pattern and turning movements, that we add the sentence as a requirement of our permit that this condition be incorporated into every lease that is issued for the building. And then the planning board knows it's not just that there's a permit that says it's sitting on the record at the registry. The tenant will have that provision in their lease. That's the best way for them to know that it exists, and it gives us an enforcement mechanism if they're not playing by the rules.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I have a few questions. You talked about widening the turning lane. And we spoke about creating a buffer on your property. And that will be vegetated to some degree, correct?
Absolutely.
So just not a mound of dirt,
Absolutely.
like we may see somewhere else in town. Also, there was a couple of discussions about preventing the ability from someone turning right onto Maple Street, coming off of 495 and 140, and going into your property. Dennis mentioned an island. Will that sign say trucks do not enter or cannot enter? Or can that be done?
So, let's see, we can't put an off-site sign, right? So any sign that we can put.
That'd be on your property.
Would be on our property. So we can put a sign that says no trucks. But I'd ask the board what they want, because again, I think we want to make it as easy as possible for trucks to enter the property the way we want on mechanic.
Correct.
We want to add the provisions to the lease to make sure that our tenants know that that's what their drivers should do, and we put that in a lease.
Yeah.
However, I think I want to be careful if we put a sign at that driveway that says no trucks, which if a truck driver happens to listen to it, I'm not convinced that they would, but if they happen to listen to it, then they would drive down Maple to turn around, which I don't think that is what you want. I think the better provisions, better mechanisms to get what we're all looking for are to add language in the lease to make sure that it's enforceable and clear, and to make it as clear.
I'm thinking about the one-off trucker that may be delivering.
No, I agree, but I wouldn't want them to then go down Maple to turn around.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I add to that, Bill?
What?
1 second. Would you mind if I added to that?
No.
With, as far as the signage goes, I kind of think less signage in this case is probably better. That was the reason why I was saying, let's make it so these curb cuts, you can't exit a certain way, you can't enter. a
Okay,
certain
that's
way.
fine.
You know what I mean? And the other thing too is with this, you know, I know we're assuming that, you know, you're gonna have tractor trailer trucks coming in, but there is a chance that this is gonna just be assumed box trucks or something a little bit less intense or a little less detrimental to Maple Street, where maybe with whatever the use is, you know, tractor trailers that are using this warehouse come off the highway, but they use a smaller vehicle that might exit onto Maple Street. So I don't know, you know, no trucks entering will necessarily work. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I'll stop
No.
talking now.
You're fine.
This happens every time.
Good.
Jim, going back maybe 8 years, we've had a large discussion when we were dealing with Amazon. Well, a pipe dream of a bypass road on Maple Street.
Right.
Can you give me a history on that, just so people know? That we've looked into that, correct?
Right, yeah. I know
Impacted by
what
the
you're
Army
referring-
Corps?
Yep, I know what you're referring to in terms of Mechanic Street. All
Yes.
right, yeah, and trying to link these properties. We have looked at it for quite some time. On aerial maps, it looks practical as could be, taking you from essentially Town Hall to Maple Street and putting a nice parallel track for Mechanic Street. But unfortunately, there's significant flood storage area and other wetland concerns in the rear of these sites, Army Corps land, and the like, that it makes it impossible to link those up. You know, we certainly, I know this board was looking at it a while back and raised the question during 160 Mechanic Street, and you know, obviously it would have been a great addition without significant wetland challenges. You would have to basically put a massive bridge, which would, I don't think we would have a development large enough that would be able to pay for that.
Because I suspect it may come up again. One thing I noticed, I think other members noticed, we were there around 10 o'clock on a Saturday. You had the gravel operation operating. Sound. You are going to lower your building, correct?
Yes, yeah, the building is set below the grade of the street.
So that will deaden some of the sound. And while we were there, we could not hear a lot of sound other than the asphalt cover. And I know to address the concerns of some of the neighbors, you're putting a wall in the back to buffer the sound somewhat.
Yep, that's correct. I think at the last meeting, we had presented this based on the concern that we heard from the neighbor and the board, that at the back area, the back corner, we're adding a wall and then a row of essentially green giants. And they say that those grow very quick, very full, and it's a year-round plant. It doesn't lose its leaves. So we're adding that right at the that back corner there as well.
So I don't think I was the only one, you know, we couldn't hear much.
Yeah.
Other than
Yeah,
the
I was,
company.
if I may, I was standing in the back. I stood there for at least 15, 20 minutes, and I was watching the other trucks in the other building come and go.
Yeah.
I could not hear them.
Yeah,
At all.
I would agree. I think it's pretty far removed from everything. We did proactively take a look at the sound study that we reviewed with the board, and that was in full compliance with local, state, and scenic bylaw.
Okay.
And that was provided.
I also want to thank you for listening to the board and listening to some of the neighbors about making the building, I guess, more pretty and attractive. And I think you've done that. So I think we've addressed, you know, not only the needs of this board, but you've listened to what some of the abutters want to say.
They were good comments.
So thank you, and thank you for the time. last Saturday. I want to thank the board members for showing up. I'd like to turn it over to the public. Jim, you see anyone with their hand raised?
Let's see. I see Mr. Dunley has unmuted.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. I just don't see how in Zoom to raise a hand. So the only way I can get attention is to unmute myself. I'm more used to using Microsoft Teams. So let me just go through a few quick points. The aesthetics on the facade of the warehouse are a great improvement to what we had seen in prior renderings. I do have a question. What is the relief of those elevation changes over on the Amazon facility? We asked for the same thing. They provided some aesthetics, but the difference in relief from the warehouse walls to the brick veneer is, excuse me, only about the depth of a brick veneer. So there's no real like depth to the relief. It's almost like it's painted on to create the illusion of relief. So I'll just ask the board to inquire about that. I don't want to vociferate on that point because I have some other ones to move on, but in general, I like what they've done. Just hopefully there's actually some relief there on the elevation. It's just not a full relief. On the sign for the Welcome to Bellingham, I think that's a very nice colonial-esque feel to it. I think it's harmonious with the Charles River Bank Plaza across the street that has kind of a colonial feel to it. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I'm actually pleased to see that. Next would be any signage that's on the building. I don't want to dilute the effect of that Welcome to Bellingham sign, which I think that design is appealing, only to have it be kind of disappeared in the backdrop of a whole bunch of building-borne sounds that are possibly backlit as well. So when you come time for the board to review the on-building signage, less is certainly more. Look across the street to again, the Charles River Bank Plaza, take some cues from that, I'd suggest. The bicycle lane that was brought up was a very key point. You're essentially ending the bicycle lane at the start of a truck turnout onto 140 and forcing a cyclist into the travel lane. Again, I heard the applicant will look into that. I'd strongly encourage the board to pursue that one. Because the sound was broached tonight, I did want to point out in the tech environmental report, specifically page 10, they have their facility design goals for the 57 High Street and 334 Maple Street is 40 decibels. That would be per the scenic bylaw noise sound limits. Issue there is they've missed the boat on that. There's a 5 decibel penalty for impulsive noise. Certainly the truck hitching in the back of beepers qualify as impulsive noise. So the design goal target is actually 35 decibels, not 40 decibels. And their projected sound at the nighttime is 33 decibels, only 2 decibels below our bylaw limits. So again, this speaks to the fact of having restrictions on the nighttime operations in the yard. I mean, if we were going to split hairs and say that a 2 decibel difference, meets the muster, the letter of the law, I don't think it meets the spirit of the law to say that they've snuck in 2 decibels under the nighttime limit. And it's nighttime, which we're really concerned about. You talked about your site visit, heard the Riley Brothers asphalt operation, and that's all you heard. It is noisy, but it's noisy during the day. They're not in operation at night. Again, everything is about us getting to sleep at nighttime. Those are my points. Very positive what I've seen tonight, but those are the points I'd like the board to pursue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. One thing we may want to talk about, and it's been bantered around for a while. Do you know, and we don't know the tenant, and unfortunately, Attorney Antonellis is not the attorney representing us, and he's aware of it. There are backup swish alarms now for vehicles that meet the OSHA requirements for safety, but deaden the sound. So mostly stays on the property. Is there any way you can look into those as an option?
I could defer to Wayne on that, but my understanding is if it's a, the tenant that has, their own trucks and
Yeah,
whatnot,
you
they can
can-
do that. If
yes.
there's trucks that.
The one-offs or whatever.
Yeah, you can't control those.
But I think if the tenants can do it, it will reduce, dramatically that sound. It will give you, a little more place, so to speak.
You think they're installed on the wheel drum, aren't they?
Yeah, the point is that this is Wayne Finnegan, by the way,
Sure.
Wayne Finnegan, that's my name.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Whether or not
Right, it'd be
the
the tenant.
tenant controls the truck.
Right, exactly.
Right. So I think we can look into kind of a similar lease language, Paul.
Mhm.
I don't know enough about this, Paul, right, in terms of complexity associated with that. And what we always want to be careful of is that we're limiting the use in the market and restricting too much.
Yep.
The use in the market from something that has very minimal effect in the overall, kind of production and operation of the warehouse.
I understand.
That's what we're always sensitive to that, right?
Yeah, I agree, it's a business.
Yeah.
But I think when it's worked in the past, when we've dealt with it, I think it's simply a switch on a vehicle that goes from normal backup to the switch. So that they have both, and it's just, they keep reminding me of, they remember to hit that switch. It deadens the sound, it doesn't make that truck specifically only eligible to you.
I think it's a great idea. So we'll look at it.
Okay, it is out there if you Google it. Yes, sir,
Two things.
absolutely.
Who's gonna hear the backup alarm? There isn't a residence within quarter of a mile. It's industrial all the way around both sides and across the street.
It was brought up, who's your sound engineer?
There's no residences near.
I understand that.
And the other thing I want to point out is, the asphalt plant does run at night because the state and the highways, they pave all night long. That's when they pave is at night. That plant runs at night.
Okay.
And it doesn't bother them.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other comments? Mr. Dudley, are you unmuted again?
Yeah, I don't know if we're allowed to rebut some of those comments.
No, just address it to the board, sir.
Yeah, to the board then, in terms of the nighttime operation for Riley pavement, yes, they do operate at night, but it's not a continuous basis. That's on special projects only. So it's disingenuous to say they operate through the night. They don't. Periodically they will, just for reference.
Okay.
Yep. And they talk about the sound study meeting the requirements. I think I've just shown to the board that specifically that page 10 of the sound study shows that you were within 2 decibels of our legal limit. Cutting it in. Yeah. Thank you.
Anyone else, Jim?
I don't see anyone else with their hands up.
I think what we may want to do next, and Jim, please correct me if I'm wrong, is if you could deal with a mitigation package with the applicant for a meeting on the 26th.
Yeah.
In regards to any special language for easement, signage, maintenance, construction, what we now call the Maple Street, Mechanic Street enhancement area, or whatever we're gonna call it. So on and so forth. So we can have a rather comprehensive list.
Absolutely, I can work with Attorney Feldman on that language, and we could certainly have that ready for you at a subsequent meeting.
Is it possible to do a parallel document for to outline possible conditions?
Absolutely, I can have something ready for you at that meeting as well for conditions.
And then I assume you can hear from our sound engineer by the next meeting for a report.
The peer review?
Yeah, our peer review.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, he did not have enough time to review it.
For sound or for the turns?
No, I'm sorry, that's Frank for traffic, right?
Frank for traffic, excuse me. Thank you for correcting. I don't believe I need a motion, I just need a
Question, were you gonna bring up, were we talking about with the other warehouse, what we were thinking
yes,
as far as?
the OEM.
Right, what are we thinking with this one? Are we gonna,
I think we look at similar language.
okay.
And then, based on the location, if we need to make any special conditions, I don't
So
think
do we
so.
want the applicant to come up with what they think? or how-
Absolutely.
Does that work for you guys?
I just
Or
want to
what are you
make sure I
thinking?
fully understand it. So-
That's
so
what,
it's-
let's talk about that a little bit more with the board, right?
So
everybody
special
understands.
language, are you just looking to get language in the document that requires the applicant to clean up their own yard and establish a frequency for that? Is that simply what you're looking for?
What are you guys looking for? I think the board needs
I
to
think we're
discuss what they might
looking
be
for
looking
things
for.
like that. What we're trying to do is strengthen the OEM language we have right now to make it more encompassing. And just, things that are, I don't want to use the word common sense, but common sense and fairly simple to accomplish.
The concern, so we could certainly put something together and work with Wayne on that, but the concern is really, I'm gonna call it good housekeeping, which I know is the word you didn't like, but good housekeeping, cleaning up after the trash and what the provisions for that. It's not the stormwater maintenance, that's the standard. You're talking with trash maintenance and things
Yes.
along those lines to make sure that if somebody dumps something in your yard, we're taking care of it, like you would your house.
Correct.
You don't leave trash in your front yard.
Correct.
Okay, I understand. We can put some language together. I think it would be relatively straightforward. We could review it with.
And, unfortunately or unfortunately, we're dealing with another project.
Yep.
There's different, I don't want to say it's less obvious.
Well, trash is trash, and I think
Yeah.
any owner will want to take care of their property, but to provide some language in there that provides more clarity to that, and frankly, more teeth, I guess, to that as well.
And again, we'll get the discussion going for our benefit as well.
Okay, we'll put together something.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
that would be for the tenant himself would have to take care of that, correct?
Correct.
And now we go out to his maintenance people that maintains the grounds.
Operating in.
That's
Exactly.
Yeah, that's correct. It's similar to when you hire a contractor that has to come in and clean a catch basins,
Yeah.
your stormwater basins, mow your lawn
Exactly,
and all
right.
that. That just
Okay.
becomes part of
Yep.
it. You add a trash maintenance.
And they probably already have policies in place, the tenant will,
Mhm.
with regards to safety data sheets, so on and so forth. So I would think any future tenant will be hopefully familiar with that.
Yeah, we can take a crack at putting something.
And then again, we will be working on this together.
Makes sense.
And tonight was, listening to everyone's first public announcement of what we want to do.
I think that makes sense.
Thank you very much, and we'll see you on the,
Now I have them for the 12th. Is that what we're thinking?
Jim, you were thinking the
Well, we're thinking-
26th?
Do you want to push it to 26th or do we?
If there's room on the 12th, if I would defer to Amy, if there's room on the agenda for the 12th, I'm happy to have it prepared for the 12th.
Bear in mind, we have reorganization.
I was gonna hopefully keep both together, 152 and 206, if that works. For
Works
you
for me.
guys.
That's fine.
Saves everybody from coming up
Okay.
again. So that was the thought process behind
That's
it.
it. That's good.
You're welcome.
Well played. We don't want you clogging up our street.
No.
One less trip.
Yeah, we can separate if you want.
Right, we can put you on the other grade.
Yes, that'll be one of the OEMs. Future meetings, 7-0, just once.
It's a little too into the future for us too, by the way, watching that unfold.
Thank you.
Okay, so motion for the 12th.
Yep.
So moved.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That motion passes
Very
unanimously.
good, thank you much. Looks
Thank you all.
great.
Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you
Nice
for
job.
working with us,
Yes.
and thank you for your time.
No, thank you for your
Have a
comments.
safe trip home.
Thanks for listening.
Have we all had a chance to look at the minutes from our last meeting? Thank you, sir.
I move to approve
That's written. But I have a motion made and approved to approve the minutes from the March 24th, 2022 meeting. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes unanimously.
Great job by Amy. She's doing a great job.
Thank you.
Amy.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All in
Do
favor?
we have two sets.
Yeah. 24th.
I thought we,
We have two. Yes.
okay, I only saw the one on the agenda.
I'll move to approve the March 24th set of minutes.
That's what we just said, done.
And there was the, I believe there's the 10th.
Okay.
Whatever one I
So-
didn't say, I moved to.
We
approve.
did say the 10th, but we approved the 24th.
Approve all minutes.
Oh, boy.
Jim, we're getting there.
I was not here on the 10th,
It's okay. You can still, if you get, you
although I
can abstain.
signed the document.
Yeah, you can abstain. too.
Okay.
That's whatever works.
There's a motion to approve the minutes on the 10th.
Dennis seconds.
Dennis, a
Okay.
second.
Yep.
Very good.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? One.
Yes. Okay.
So that would technically be unanimous.
Yes. So we will have on the 28th, the public hearing for the warrant articles.
Correct, that is it.
And that is it.
Do you know which warrants are coming up?
We have the Rogers Way Street acceptance, and then we have the rezoning of Hartford Ave, and then we have the marijuana.
So I have to zoom in on the 28th. I'll be out of town.
I believe, I think they may be in that order as well.
Okay.
So
So
you're saying nothing controversial then?
No,
nothing controversial, should be quick and easy.
yeah. It's
All right.
NFL draft night.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Jimmy.
Thanks, Jim.
Nice
Have a
Thanks,
good night,
thank
guys.
you.